I restart civilization in the 27th century. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 176, Shen and the Mausoleum. Bang. With a loud bang, the figure turned into a residual shadow, making it impossible for the relic hunters to see the master level shadow ghost clearly. It was smashed heavily into the ground, its limbs limp, sticking to the soil like a rag, and it was obviously dead. The relic hunters were all stunned. Only the Grandmaster level awakeners could kill the Grandmaster level lost heart ghost with one move. This little girl looked chubby and silly, but she was actually a Grandmaster level awakener. Everyone was not only nervous and shocked, but especially the female relic hunter who had just spoken rudely to Yang Bao and Chang Ning. At this moment, she was so scared that she trembled all over and dared not look at Chang Ning's team, as if they were more terrifying than the lost heart ghost. After being stunned, the other relic hunters were ecstatic. With a Grandmaster in the team, this trip became much safer. No wonder this strange team was not nervous at all, because there was a Grandmaster in their team. After knowing that there was a master in their team, the relic hunters moved faster. After walking for another 6 or 7 hours, they finally walked out of the heartless ghost forest. Along the way, they encountered 7 or 8 attacks of varying sizes. The most exaggerated one was when a master level heartless ghost attacked with 7 or 8 advanced and master level heartless ghosts. However, Yang Bao met them and killed the group of heartless ghosts with lightning thicker than the giant trees in the forest. The master level heartless ghosts were also solved by Yun Kai and Qian with Chang Ning's Skywalker laser sword. From then on, a group of relic hunters including Chen looked at Chang Ning as if they were looking at a monster. Although they didn't know the specific strength of this person, it was okay for him to go out with 2 female subordinates who were both masters. Chang Ning was also happy to leave them with the impression that soft rice is really delicious, and he did not take action himself. As for Yang Bao, this old relic hunter has been ignored by his peers. After walking out of the heartless ghost forest, there were mountains in front of them. At this time, it was dusk, and Chen gathered everyone in a circle to arrange tasks. Our purpose this time is to find the tomb of an emperor who lived 1,000 years ago. These 2 words will definitely appear near this tomb. He took out a piece of paper with the word Chang Ning written on it and showed it to the relic hunters. The reason why we gathered everyone this time is because the search range is quite large. The entire mountain range in front of us is the target of the search. From now on, everyone will be divided into 5 groups in small teams and search separately. The group that finds it will report the situation through the walkie-talkie. If it is not found after 3 days, we will gather here again to discuss the next action plan. Do you understand? The 5 groups of relic hunters nodded one after another and dispersed with a walkie-talkie each. Chen also led a team. He turned around and said to Chang Ning, "Xiao Chang, are you also going to look for that mausoleum? How about I give you a walkie-talkie? If you find it, I will give you half of the reward according to the rules." Chang Ning shook his head. "We are just looking around here. If we encounter the mausoleum you are looking for, I will contact you. Forget about the reward, just give me a walkie-talkie." Chen cast a grateful look. The combat power of Chang Ning's team beats all the relic hunters he summoned, so the probability of finding the target is naturally greater. Since he is willing to help, the possibility of completing the task is greatly increased. Chen handed over a walkie-talkie and said to Chang Ning, "What should be given must be given, otherwise it is against the rules. Your willingness to help is already the greatest support for me." After that, he led his team and chose a direction to enter the mountain. Chang Ning watched the relic hunters leave, then turned around and said to the 3 people in his team, "Okay, what should we do now? Does anyone have any suggestions?" Yang Bao rolled his eyes. "Didn't you ask us to follow you? Don't you have a plan for what to do?" Chang Ning laughed and said, "I'll take you to a fun place, let's go." This mountain in the north of Yangjing City was the dividing line between nomadic tribes and agricultural civilization in ancient times, and it also buried 13 Ming dynasty emperors who guarded the country's gates. From Emperor Yongle Zhud, who launched a military campaign to quell the rebellion and seize the throne from his nephew, to Emperor Changzhen, who was hanged on the crooked tree on Coal Hill, except for Emperor Jingtai, who was exiled to other places by his brother for burial. The rest of the emperors were buried in this long mountain after their death. This mountain has long since restored its most primitive ecology. Standing at the foot of the mountain, Chang Ning and his 4 companions could not imagine that this was a bustling tourist area 300 years ago. Without the national highway and the signboards, Chang Ning had to climb the mountain on foot to find the 13 tombs of the year. The mountain in front of them was not high. After more than 20 minutes, Chang Ning and his 4 companions stood on the top of the mountain. Looking north, there were endless mountains in the north, and there was a clear lake in the nearby ravine. Chang Ning recalled that in the 21st century, the Ming tombs seemed to have a reservoir, which might be the lake in front of him. As for the entrance to the scenic area of the Ming tombs, Chang Ning remembered that it was not far northwest of the reservoir. With a specific reference, it would save time and effort to find it. The 4 people came down from the small peak at their feet and headed straight to the west of the reservoir. Not long after going down the mountain, Chang Ning found the ruins of a winding stone road in the forest under his feet. Walking forward along the broken stone slabs for a while, there was a damaged stone archway on the ground, and there were 2 huge stone camels next to the archway. It seems to be here, Chang Ning said to Xiao Bao excitedly. This should be the outer sacred road of the Ming tombs. In the old world, it existed as a road to the entrance of the scenic area. Along this road, you can walk all the way to the burial area of the Ming tombs. Sure enough, after walking a few kilometers and turning west, a mound appeared in front of them. After walking for half an hour, in front of the mound was the ruins of a courtyard wall in the style of the Ming and Qing dynasties. Most of it had collapsed, but the outline of a palace could still be clearly seen. The 4 people stepped forward and stared at the large stone characters on the ruins of the main gate. What are these characters? Young Kai and Kian looked up and asked Chang Ning. Dingling. Dingling? Isn't it Kangling? Did you find the wrong place? Xiang Bao also came over. The tombs of 13 emperors are buried here. Anyway, it's not far away. When we get to Dingling, Kangling is likely to be nearby. Chang Ning recalled that Dingling was the only tomb of the 13 tombs that was dug up by the official in the 21st century. It was buried by Emperor Wanli of the Ming dynasty. This emperor, who ruled the Ming dynasty for the longest time, ordered the excavation of Zhang Zhezheng's tomb shortly after his teacher Zhang Zhezheng died. He should not have thought that hundreds of years later, his tomb would be dug up by a group of scholars under the banner of archaeological research. Do you want to go down to the tomb and take a look? Chang Ning turned to ask Xiang Bao. Yang Bao behind him pulled Chang Ning's sleeve. It's getting dark. Why go down to the tomb? Chang Ning smiled. This Dingling has been excavated in the old world, and a museum was built. You can actually go and visit it. Xiang Bao and Yang Kai and Kian did not comment, but under Yang Bao's strong opposition, the 4 did not enter the tomb after all, but continued to move north along the ravine. Not long after they set out, it was completely dark. It happened that another palace site appeared in front of them, and Chang Ning directly used his star power to refresh it into a brand new palace, and then the 4 spread out their sleeping bags here and spent the night. Chapter 177 Justig. The next morning, the 4 of them packed up and came out of the palace. Chang Ning looked back and saw that the 3 characters were written on the plaque of the palace. There was still a mound ahead, and a stone tablet with the words was found nearby. Chang Ning knew that this was the mausoleum of Zhud, the famous nephew-killing demon Yongle Emperor. However, this time they came out to find Kangling, so Chang Ning and the other 4 did not stay here for long and continued to move forward along the valley. By noon, they had passed Xianling, Qingling, Yuling, and Maoling along the way, and finally found the relatively lonely Kangling on the other side of the ravine. Damn, it's hidden deep enough. Xiang Bao stood in front of the ruins of Kangling and cursed. Chang Ning looked around. Is this the place Jiangbin is looking for? What secrets are buried in this place that are worth Jiangbin bypassing Chief Zhu and looking for it alone? After passing the remains of the Hall of Enon, a shaky and dangerous building appeared in front of them. When they walked over, Chang Ning could see a broken stone tablet in the building, on which he could vaguely recognize the words "The Tomb of Emperor Wu Zhangyi of the Ming Dynasty." It seems that this is a tomb of Zhu Hao's Xiao. Behind the dangerous building, as usual, there is a mound, which should be the upper filling of the underground palace. This emperor's tomb is really small. Young Qian jumped onto the dangerous building and looked at the small mound behind. Chang Ning knew that Zhu Hao's Xiao had no son when he died, which was considered to be a dead end. His cousin, Emperor Jiajing, who succeeded him as emperor, did not recognize Zhu Hao's Xiao's father as his father, and argued with reason to create a great ceremony debate. Therefore, it is estimated that he did not care much about building a mausoleum for his former cousin, and it is normal to be smaller. However, Chang Ning did not care about the size of the mausoleum. What he was worried about now was how to get in. For mausoleums like Dingling that have been excavated in the old world, you can find the sacred road to the lower mausoleum by following the ruins of the scenic area. Kangling should not have been dug up until the doomsday event occurred. So Chang Ning had no idea how to get down to the mausoleum. The sun was shining brightly, and there were no particularly dense forests on the hills near Kangling. The autumn afternoon was warm, and Yang Bao was no longer as scared as she was last night. Instead, she followed Chang Ning and walked around the mound of Dingling. What's wrong? She saw that Chang Ning was frowning, so she asked. Kangling has been found, but how do we get down? Chang Ning asked out of confusion. How to get down? Why not ask Xiang Bao? Wasn't he a relic hunter before? He should be good at digging pits, right? Yang Bao suggested. Chang Ning nodded, and the two walked around the mound and came to the vicinity of the dangerous building, where they found Xiang Bao, who was discussing what to eat for lunch with young Qian. Hearing Chang Ning's question, Xiang Bao scratched his head. We, the relic hunters, have no experience in tomb robbing. There is no food or daily necessities in this ancient tomb. Why dig it? Chang Ning rolled his eyes. Useless guy. Xiang Bao became indignant. How to go down is actually very simple. Isn't it just digging a pit directly? We are four awakened people. How can we not even dig a pit properly? Can't we just dig directly? Why do we have to go around in circles? Chang Ning was silent. After thinking for a long time, he nodded. This is the only way. If there are other ways, he doesn't want to go down to the mausoleum directly by digging a pit. This will cause damage to the cultural relics below. Moreover, if the correct way to enter is not found, there is also the risk of landslides if it is dug directly from the top of the tomb. Although it is not a big trouble for them, it will get their clothes dirty anyway. However, since there is no better way, they can only dig a pit directly. It is not known whether human civilization can be preserved. It seems a bit hypocritical to worry about the protection of cultural relics now. Chang Ning had a hunch that this tomb should contain something related to the present world. After making up his mind, it was easy to do. Chang Ning took young Qian and Xiang Bao to make a few wooden shovels with the pine trees next to them, and then began to dig down along the bottom edge of the Kangling mound. They dug a downward slope of about 30 degrees. Because they didn't know the specific location and size of the underground palace, they could only try to dig in the direction of the middle of the mound. But their luck was not bad. After about 2 hours, they dug out a tunnel 40 to 50 meters long, which could accommodate one person. At the end of the tunnel, they encountered a hard burial soil. After digging open the burial soil, there was a layer of bluestone bricks inside. It's here. Chang Ning took out the Skywalker #1 laser sword and prepared to cut the bluestone bricks. Aren't you going to notify uncles and Chen? Young Qian asked behind him. It's not too late to notify us after we go in and take a look. Chang Ning didn't care. He turned on the switch of the laser sword and cut a doorway in the bluestone brick wall in a few strokes. A rotten and slightly smelly air suddenly rushed out, making Chang Ning feel short of breath. Go up first, Chang Ning said to his teammates behind him. Everyone retreated back to the outside of the cave and stood at the foot of the mound looking at the cave in trance. Let's wait for some fresh air to come in before we go down, Chang Ning explained. He knew that once the fresh air went down, if there were murals and paper and silk burial objects in the tomb, they would inevitably be oxidized. But in this apocalyptic wasteland, only things that can support human survival and reproduction are precious treasures. As for the Emperor's tomb thousands of years ago, if there is something in it that is helpful to the current situation, digging it up is the best choice. Chang Ning explained this to himself in his heart, but he couldn't help but feel a little guilty. After more than 10 minutes, Chang Ning took out the lighting lamp again and walked down the cave first. They didn't have candles and couldn't judge the air quality, but the physiques of several people were very good, and relying on their own physical reactions, they would not encounter any danger in the tomb. The tunnel of dozens of meters was reached in the blink of an eye. Chang Ning crossed the cave that had just been cut and came to the tomb. This is an underground space of about 100 square meters, with a closed white marble door in front and back. Under the light of the lighting, you can see that the surroundings are empty, with only the surrounding stone walls and the rotten wood under your feet, and no other items. Has it been stolen? Chang Ning couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. But looking at the closed state of the surroundings, except for the hole he cut, everything is intact. He estimated that this was a transitional tomb, so he walked towards the white marble door at the back. He pushed it, but there was no movement. There should be some mechanism behind this door. Chang Ning was too lazy to crack this mechanism and directly use the laser sword to break another big hole in the wall next to the door. Ahem. The rotten air inside made Chang Ning cough twice. He looked inside carefully. This tomb was much larger than the one he had just entered. There were two huge white marble chairs in the front and back of the tomb. They should be the dragon chairs that Emperor Zheng and his queen sat on in the underground world. There are also many ceramic lamps next to the chairs, which are probably the eternal lamps in ancient tombs, but they have been extinguished now. Looking further inside, behind the chair, in addition to a white marble door, there is a small door on each side. Chang Ning walked forward a few steps, came to the small door on the left, and looked inside. This is it. He suddenly widened his eyes, his face full of disbelief. Chapter 178 Shocking. People in the Ming Dynasty predicted the technology of the United States in the 20th century. This tomb is very large. If we compare it to the living space of a living person, it should be similar to a living room. In addition to a white marble door leading to the bedroom, there is a small door on each side. This small door leads to the east and west side rooms, which are generally used to place the favorite items of the tomb owner during his lifetime. It is the place with the most burial objects besides the main tomb chamber, where the coffin is stored. Of course, some funerary objects are alive, such as the owner's favorite pets, concubines, or cooks, etc. Chang Ning stepped over the throne of the underworld of Emperor Zheng, came to the small door on the left, and looked inside. There are indeed some living burial objects buried here. However, they are not human beings, but some animal skeletons. There are several large cats in shape, which may be leopards, lions, etc. There are also several horse skeletons and the remains of an adult elephant. Around these skeletons, there are all kinds of porcelain, lacquer, gold, severely oxidized silver and rotten wood. In addition to the common styles of the Ming Dynasty, these items also have many things in the styles of Arab, Western European and even primitive African tribes. What Damascus scimitars, Genoa glass, East African chieftain scepter. It's simply a 16th century world customs museum. One of them is particularly eye-catching. Chang Ning only took a look and stayed there. How could there be such a thing? It's unscientific. This is the mausoleum of Emperor Zheng, which was buried more than 1,000 years ago. For 1,000 years, no one has ever been here, but this strange thing has been lying here quietly for 1,000 years. Chang Ning took 2 steps forward and shone the light of the flashlight carefully. This is a bone tool, made of the bones of an unknown animal, and the production process is very different from all other funerary objects. It is more than 1 meter long, and every surface has been carefully carved, and the whole vessel is flat and smooth. Its appearance is exactly the same as the Voyager probe. It can be regarded as a bone-made replica of the Voyager probe. Chang Ning has a deep impression of this probe. In Richard's former residence on the 168th floor of Yunsheng, Chang Ning saw a document about the secrets of the back of the moon. This was the event that shook the entire scientific and political worlds on the eve of the world-destroying disaster. On the back of the moon, scientists found Matter X. Then, the first spacecraft made by an alien civilization discovered by humans crashed into the excavation site of the Matter X stele. This spacecraft was very similar to the Voyager probe, which shocked all scientists at the time. In the documents, there were high-resolution photos of the Voyager probe and the alien spacecraft that crashed at the time. Chang Ning also enlarged them and looked at them carefully. Therefore, he was deeply impressed by this thing. Now, in the tomb of Emperor Zheng, he actually saw a similar thing again. Under the light of the flashlight, Chang Ning carefully examined this large bone handmade from top to bottom. After a look, Chang Ning found that it was different from the Voyager and the alien civilization spacecraft, but they looked very similar. All three of them had two huge solar panel wings, a huge radar antenna, and several other antennas. There was even a gold record on the main body. There was also a pure gold round object attached to this bone thing. But although they are very similar in appearance, they look like twin brothers at first glance. In fact, the three of them are different in details. For example, the golden record in the Zheng mausoleum does not depict the image of a human being, but an animal similar to an octopus. Chang Ning still remembers that when he saw the photo of the alien spacecraft in Richard's former residence, he was shocked. An object that flew from who knows how many light years away and was made tens of thousands or even millions of years ago. Why is it so similar to the aircraft launched on Earth in the 20th century? And this bone thing in the Zheng mausoleum gave him an even greater shock. The American people did not launch the aircraft until the 20th century, but there was already a handmade in the tomb of the Chinese emperor in the early 16th century. Chang Ning picked it up carefully. This thing doesn't look big, and it should be carved from lighter bones, but when he picked it up, Chang Ning felt a great weight. The entire bone utensil is estimated to be nearly 200 kilograms. Looking at the sealed main part, Chang Ning felt that there should be something else in it. After taking it in his hand and examining it carefully, Chang Ning temporarily placed it on the throne of the underworld of the Emperor Zheng, and then returned to the left room. The flashlight shone up and down, left and right, and among the messy burial objects, Chang Ning finally found another clue. This is a piece of nitrated leather. The color has turned dark brown, but if you look carefully, you can still see some words written on it. In the 20th year of Yongle in the Ming Dynasty, when it arrived at Zubu, the treasure ship stopped temporarily. The bone supply vessel, called the ship outside the sky, fell into the Borno Lake, and it has been more than 1,000 years. The inner elixir, the universe. Although only a small amount of words can be read intermittently, Chang Ning can also guess the general idea, based on these words. This thing was obtained by the Ming Dynasty royal family in the 20th year of Yongle. The location is Zubu, and the place of origin of this thing is called Borno Lake. Hearing these two names, you know that it is not in the Central Plains. Chang Ning estimated that this should be the treasure that Zheng He accepted as tribute from foreign countries when he sailed to the West 7 times. Judging from the style of the place name, this place is probably not in Southeast Asia or India, but in West Asia or even East Africa. There are also words such as inner alchemy and cross universe at the end, which seems to be confusing. Chang Ning notes that the 4 directions are called universe, and the past is called the present. Does the word cross universe mean the ancient version of time travel? In other words, this bone tool is related to time travel. Isn't this the nature of X substance? Chang Ning was brought from the 21st century to the 27th century by the X substance laboratory in Zhangjiang Science Park, Shanghai. After this bone tool was brought back to China, no one knows what happened later. It is very likely that it lay quietly in the royal treasury. It was not until the Zheng Emperor Zhu Xiao ascended the throne that it was discovered by chance. Then I don't know what happened. In short, the Zheng Emperor valued this bone tool very much and even asked to be buried with it. X substance that can travel through time. 3 aircraft with extremely similar appearances, but completely different construction times and species. Zhu Xiao and Chief Zhu Jiangbin and Dr. Jiangbin. Chang Ning felt that the whole thing was a mess. The bone tool left by Emperor Zheng in his hand may be an important clue to solving this mess. Chapter 179 Another laboratory. Chang Ning, come and see. While squatting beside the huge bone tool and thinking, Chang Ning heard a faint and dull voice, which was Xiang Bao's. Xiang Bao did not go down to the tomb. He shouted into the tomb from outside, so his voice was a little muffled. Got it, wait a minute. Chang Ning responded. Then he stood up, walked to the door of the right room, and stuck his head in to look. There was also a pile of burial objects here, but most of them were daily utensils. What pots, pans, teacups, and kettles. ZHU Hao's Xiao might be afraid of lack of food and clothing down there, so he brought down everything that could be used up there. The whole exhibition of imperial items of the Chinese court in the 16th century. If this pile of burial objects were placed in the 21st century, it would be a national treasure level cultural relic, which would be of great value to the study of Ming Dynasty history and living customs. But in the 27th century, it was just a pile of useless antiques. Chang Ning shook his head and stepped out, then looked at the white marble door of ZHU Hao's Xiao's bedroom. After thinking for a few seconds, Chang Ning decided not to disturb others' rest. The Wanli Emperor, a relative of the younger generation of the Zheng Emperor, had his bedroom opened and his body exposed. Later, during a period of turmoil, his body was burned clean by the young generals and his bones were crushed to ashes. Chang Ning was not so perverted. He felt that the bone tool in his hand was the most attractive thing in this mausoleum. It played an important role in helping him to crack the secret of X substance and find the way back. Zheng's bedroom probably only contained the bodies of him and his queen, and a bunch of living burial objects. It didn't matter if he didn't open it. So he turned back to the front hall and drilled back to the ground through the hole he had dug before. What did you take out? Yang Bao saw Chang Ning holding a bunch of bone-like things and shouted in horror. Wow, brother Xiao Ning, you are so brave. Young Qian had just followed Chang Ning down, and when she saw that there was nothing interesting in the front tomb chamber, she came up again, so she didn't see the scene of Chang Ning taking the bone tool in the left room, and thought that Chang Ning had moved the bones of the tomb owner up. Chang Ning said to them unhappily, "This is not a human bone, look, this is a bone figurine." Figurine? What is that? Young Qian approached curiously. Yang Bao was still far away from him, not daring to look over. Chang Ning looked up and looked around. Where is Yang Bao? He seemed to be calling me just now. Yang Bao pointed to the mountain behind the tomb mound and said, he seems to have found something there. Chang Ning nodded and threw the bone figurine of the spaceship to young Qian. Help me get it, don't break it. Then he ran in the direction pointed by Yang Bao. Zheng's Kangling was also built on the mountain. In the valley of the entire 13 tombs, it is located at the back and at the foot of the left mountain, which is different from the direction of the other tombs. Behind the tomb mound is the Yanshan Mountains, which are majestic and imposing. It is the natural dividing line between the two ancient farming and nomadic peoples. Chang Ning climbed up the mountain for more than 100 meters and saw a very flat platform, which was obviously built by humans. Xiang Bao was looking down from the edge of the platform. When he saw Chang Ning coming up, he grinned and said, "Come and see what I found." Chang Ning nodded and walked up to the platform with him. He found a huge civil air defense gate embedded in the mountain. Why is there a construction project in such a place? Chang Ning was a little puzzled. This location, even before the world-destroying disaster, was definitely not a densely populated place, nor was it a major transportation hub. What is the purpose of building a project that looks so grand here? He walked around the platform. Apart from this huge platform, there were no remains of the old world roads on the periphery. It seemed that this place grew out alone, and its location is very secretive. When Chang Ning was at the foot of the mountain just now, he didn't find that there was a different world on it. Xiang Bao also found this platform when he climbed to the top of the mountain. There are 3 big H symbols on the platform, which are a little blurred, but still recognizable. This is the helipad for parking helicopters. So this place could only be entered and exited by helicopter in the old world? Then this should be a place with a high level of confidentiality. Chang Ning couldn't help but become more and more curious about what was hidden in the gate. The two of them came to the gate of the civil air defense together, and Chang Ning turned the winch on the gate with force. It didn't turn. He increased his strength and twisted it violently. Bang! The winch broke directly. It seemed that the building was locked from the inside, and the door opening device was seriously rusted over the years. Chang Ning threw the broken winch aside and took out his laser sword. Laser cutting, indestructible. Soon, Chang Ning cut out the shape of a small door on the iron gate of the civil air defense and then pushed it gently. It didn't move. He leaned over the crack in the door and took a look and found that he didn't cut through the iron plate. The length of the laser sword is nearly 2 meters. How thick is this iron plate? Helplessly, he could only continue to turn on the laser sword and chop and slash at the iron door. It took more than 10 minutes to dig a hole in the iron door. Turning on the flashlight, Chang Ning and Xiao Bao got in one after another. What the hell is this place? It feels harder to enter than the tomb below. Xiao Bao came in behind Chang Ning, mumbling. Chang Ning swept the flashlight around, his face a little strange. This may be a laboratory in the old world. Laboratory? Experiment or something? Xiao Bao asked. Chang Ning shook his head. I don't have the power of prophecy. I have to go in and see to know. The reason why he judged that this was a laboratory was very simple. The hall here was too similar to the outer hall of the laboratory in Zhangjiang Science Park in Shanghai, where Chang Ning traveled to this era. A huge battery and a huge open space. The difference is that there are parking spaces on the open space in the laboratory in Shanghai, but not here. I guess the researchers who come to work here should not drive. At the end of the empty hall are 3 gates, one more than the laboratory in Shanghai. Chang Ning thought about it and chose to open the leftmost gate first. Here, the scene after opening this door was more familiar to Chang Ning. This room is exactly the same as the layout of the life seed bank in the laboratory in Shanghai. There is a control computer on the outside, and inside is a huge locker with many drawers. Chang Ning knows without opening it that there must be many plant seeds and animal fertilized eggs and embryos stored inside. However, it seems that the power has been off for a long time, and I don't know how active the things inside are. He exited this door and opened the middle door next to it. Behind this door should be the main laboratory of the base, which is much larger than the one in Shanghai. It is divided into more than 10 small rooms, each with a desk and experimental equipment. At the end of the laboratory is a stone wall of the mountain. On the stone wall, there is a cave leading downwards. Where does it lead to? Chang Ning walked over curiously. Chapter 180, Substance X Drop-Off Point. This laboratory is much larger than Li Cha's laboratory in Shanghai. It is divided into many small areas. Some areas have office supplies, and some areas have experimental equipment. The most conspicuous thing is that at the end of the corridor connecting various areas, there is a big hole in the wall there, which leads directly to the mountain behind. There is also a cave in the mountain, which is slanting down, and no one knows where it leads. Chang Ning walked over and looked inside. It was pitch black below, but he could vaguely see a stone staircase winding down. He hesitated for a moment, and did not go down to check immediately. Instead, he turned back, and searched in the laboratory first. The entrance of this cave is not shallow at first glance. I don't know how far I have to search out. It's better to look at what's under my feet first. There are 3 rooms in the office area. One of them is relatively small and only has a desk. Behind it is a huge bookcase. It looks like it should be the office of a leader like the director of this institute in the old world. The other one is relatively large, with 8 desks arranged in it. It should be the place where researchers usually work. The last room was not very big, and was filled with office supplies such as printers, copiers, and shredders. Under the shredder, there was a pile of half-meter thick paper scraps. After 300 years of corrosion, they had all turned into paste. There were 6 rooms in the experimental area, most of which were filled with experimental instruments that Chang Ning could not understand. A device in the largest laboratory caught Chang Ning's attention. This was a cage, and I didn't know whether it was made of titanium alloy or some other metal. Even after 300 years, it was still shining and had no signs of rust. Above the cage was a square metal box, not high, but there was a word on it that caught Chang Ning's attention. X substance release port. Could it be this was the research institute where X substance was brought to Yanjing for experiments? Chang Ning learned in Richard's former residence that in addition to the laboratory in Shanghai, there was also a copy of X substance in Yanjing, the United States, and Germany, and local scientists were also conducting research. He also wrote down the addresses of many research institutes that had business dealings with Richard, but after arriving in Yanjing, he found that the entire Yanjing city had become a ruin except for the area around the Forbidden City. The original address could not be found at all. Unexpectedly, he discovered this research institute by accident when he was doing a search mission with Chen. He recalled that there was no research institute near the Ming tombs in Richard's address. It seemed that this place was newly built after Substance X was transported back to Earth, and the confidentiality level was very high. In Richard's laboratory, Substance X was gone. What about this laboratory? Chang Ning excitedly pulled the box above the cage down and opened the lid of the Substance X port. Empty. In Richard's laboratory, because the experimental machine was always running after the doomsday, Substance X was consumed. Is this laboratory the same? Chang Ning was a little disappointed. He put down the metal box and called Xiao Bao to search the entire laboratory together. He searched everywhere, including the warehouse area in the third door next to him, but found nothing. He frowned and thought for a while, and felt that he couldn't just give up. If he couldn't find it here, did he have to go to the United States or Germany to look for the remaining Substance X? Xiao Bao, go call Qian and Yang Bao up. We may have to stay in here for a while. Chang Ning turned to Xiao Bao and said. Xiao Bao didn't ask why, just nodded and went out. Chang Ning also got up and went back to the hall outside the laboratory and used the star power to refresh the huge battery. Then he followed the wires extending from the battery and looked outside. Sure enough, not long after, he found 2 wind turbines on the other side of the hill. After the refresh, the wind wheel slowly turned, and the base that had been sleeping for 300 years woke up again, and the machines inside began to make a buzzing sound. After getting the power supply and returning to the laboratory, Qian and Yang Bao had already come up. Qian held the bone aircraft figure and handed it to Chang Ning. Brothers ironing, do you think I have kept it well? Chang Ning took it and found that it was indeed undamaged, exactly the same as when she was handed it to her. Just when he was about to praise the kid, Yang Bao rolled his eyes and said, you just wanted to take it apart, but you didn't. Why are you pretending to be a good kid? Qian snorted, why did you expose me? Want to take it apart? Chang Ning was surprised. He was not surprised by Qian's behavior. This naughty kid could do anything. If it wasn't too heavy for Yang Bao to lift, Chang Ning would not have given it to Qian for safekeeping. He was surprised that Qian tried to do something to this big bone handmade but failed. You have to know that Qian is a master level fighter, and her strength must be completely superior to most of the master level mountain movers. And Chang Ning learned at the entrance of Yaosan that a master level mountain mover awakener should be able to lift more than 100 tons of weight over his head and hold on for a period of time. With this level of strength, this bone handmaid was not damaged at all. Even if Qian didn't use all her strength, but only a small part of her strength, she could break the bones of any animal. He checked the figure in confusion, but still found no scars. So he had to put it aside for now. Now that there is electricity in the laboratory, the computers that used to work in the old world can provide Chang Ning with more information. Going straight to the office of the laboratory director, Chang Ning skillfully refreshed his computer, plugged in the power, and turned on the switch. If there are any secrets in this laboratory, the greatest possibility is definitely stored on this computer. Turn on the computer and start successfully. Enter the system. This system was reinstalled on July 21st. 2331. Chang Ning suddenly wanted to curse. It's the end of the world. Why is there such a good sense of confidentiality? Chang Ning knew that the researchers in this laboratory were most likely the military at the time, and there were a series of confidentiality regulations. For example, when evacuating from a location, burning documents, smashing hard drives, etc. There are some similar traces in this laboratory, but they are not obvious, and the confidentiality level may not be that high. But when evacuating, the researchers still habitually reinstalled the computer and shredded all the files with a shredder. Is it useful to do this kind of thing at the end of the world? Maybe it's just someone's professional habit. Not destroying the hard drive was already a very low level confidentiality measure. It was just reinstalling the computer. Logically speaking, after reinstalling the system, the original data in the hard drive can still be restored. If this was in the 21st century, Chang Ning would not hesitate to remove the hard drive and send it for recovery. But who would take the business of recovering hard drives now? Chang Ning himself didn't know how to do it. He sighed and, with a try and see attitude, refreshed the 8 computers in the large office with 8 researchers, wanting to see if anyone had a poor sense of confidentiality. He actually found a computer with data still on it. Chapter 181 Ruan Wen's Diary. Although this life-saving computer was formatted and reinstalled, some traces were left after the reinstallation. Like Xiao, the warehouse manager of the Shanghai Disaster Relief Material Emergency Allocation Center, there is also a person in this laboratory who has no relatives or friends and can only stay at his job while waiting for the end of the world. Assistant Experimenter Ruan Wen. When the end of the world was confirmed to have come and everyone left their jobs to go home and wait for death, Ruan Wen chose to stay in the laboratory and observe the experimental data. Perhaps when people are about to face death, they have a lot of things they want to say. Like Xiao, Ruan Wen also wrote several diaries. It was these diaries that allowed Chang Ning to gradually understand this laboratory and the reason why they used X substance for experiments. Everyone has finally left. This huge laboratory is now mine. Ha ha ha. How ironic. The director had a meeting with us yesterday, saying that our research will finally touch the realm of God. Time, something that has never existed since ancient times, can only be controlled by God. But not long after the meeting, the new sun in the sky outside taught us not to try to touch the authority of God, otherwise it might implicate all of our kind. The major progress in the experiment has no effect anymore, and humans will no longer exist. Major progress? Chang Ning looked at the first document and recalled that when he first came to the 27th century, he saw the document left by Richard in the laboratory in Shanghai. His experiment happened to have made major progress, but it is obvious that the 2 laboratories are conducting independent research and have no cooperation or communication. Major progress appeared almost at the same time. Is this a coincidence? Before the retreat, everyone destroyed the files according to the retreat regulations, and then everyone remembered that it didn't make any difference whether they were destroyed or not. Originally, as a small assistant researcher, I was not qualified to stay behind for this level of retreat. But the director knew my situation and gave me all the keys directly. The well-known orphan didn't want to die in the bed of the dormitory. It was a little more glorious to die at my job. Although no one knew my glory, the government said that each of us has about 3 to 5 days left, so what should I do in the next period of time? The games I downloaded were formatted when the files were destroyed. Do I have to continue doing experiments? Oh, I don't want to think about it. I'll take a nap first. I've been too busy recently, and I've been so sleepy. I don't know if I can wake up tomorrow. Ruan Wen, July 21st, 2336. After reading the first diary, Chang Ning couldn't help but complain in his heart, no wonder you have no friends. It's the end of the world, and you're still thinking about playing games. However, this diary did not provide Chang Ning with more information, and the content in it was basically what Chang Ning already knew before. He calmed down and opened the second diary. I woke up and found everything intact, not a single part was missing. Let's celebrate and have a beer and some spicy noodles later. Since it was too boring, I decided to continue the project today. Although I'm the only one in the entire base, I will do as much as I can. 1/3 of the X substance has been consumed. If the director's previous arrangement is followed, there will be some left before the real results come out, but it will definitely not be much. So, I put all the X substance in today. Humans are going to die. Who else can study it? The 2 most important parameters were determined the day before yesterday. Now I have to adjust a few detailed parameters. This is purely a matter of luck. Apart from being an orphan, I'm pretty good at other things. I don't know if I can be lucky enough to adjust all those parameters before I die. I won't say more. I will continue to adjust. Ruan Wen, July 22nd, 2336. In this diary, the assistant researcher Ruan Wen, who stayed behind, finally decided to continue his previous research. According to his statement, substance X was probably really wasted by him. Is the research in this laboratory the same as Richard's laboratory? What is their research direction? Did Ru and Wen succeed later? With these questions, Chang Ning continued to open the third diary. It's a bit difficult. Time is urgent. I started debugging 3 parameters at the same time. In this way, the consumption of X substance is amazing. However, I think this is the right direction. Today, my body can clearly feel the fluctuations in the surrounding space, which is much more than the movement made by the director before. And the spectrum of this fluctuation is getting more and more similar to the fluctuations emitted by Chang Ning at the millimeter level. I hope there will be no more abnormalities in more microscopic indicators. The current experimental conditions allow me to observe millimeter waves at most. With the current experimental progress, either I will find the correct band within 3 days and lock it tightly, or, after 3 days, the X substance will be exhausted and everything will be over. However, can I live for another 3 days? I already feel that my body is hollowed out today. Alas. Ru and Wen, July 23rd, 2337. The amount of information in this diary is a little more. First of all, Ru and Wen seems to have used a method that consumes a lot of X substance to conduct experiments. Because X substance does not exist on Earth at all, the only samples are dug out from the base on the back of the moon, and there are only so many in the whole human race. Therefore, no one must have been willing to consume a large amount of X substance to do experiments before, and they all tried to save it as much as possible. With the arrival of the doomsday, Ru and Wen no longer had this concern, and he started the experiment with enough X substance. This made Chang Ning even more unsure. After reading this diary, he felt that there was a high probability that there was no X substance here. Secondly, Ru and Wen mentioned Chang Ning in this diary. Originally, Chang Ning was very curious. Why was this laboratory built in such a remote mountain valley? There was not even a proper road, and the researchers had to take a helicopter to and from get off work every day. Now it seems that Chang Ning is probably an important reason for the location of this laboratory. The fluctuations in Chang Ning, what do they refer to? Could it be caused by that big bone figure? So did Ru and Wen succeed in the end? Chang Ning clicked on the last diary. I'm so awesome. I'm such a genius. The coordination of the 3 parameters has greatly accelerated the experimental process, but according to probability, the chance of success is less than 0.1%. I actually succeeded? Until now, I still don't believe it myself. The star power cage has been charged, and the results will be available in 3 hours. God bless me. If I die in another world, can I become the first human on Earth to die in a different time and space? Ha 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 ha. Looking forward to it. When Chang Ning saw this, his heart moved. Did he really succeed? The cage in that laboratory, like the black hole in Richard's laboratory, is also used to cross time and space. Did Ru and Wen finally get there? There is another paragraph below, and Chang Ning hurriedly continued to read it. Chapter 180 to the future that already happened. 3 hours have passed, and it seems that the energy field of the Star Force cage is basically stable. From here, it should be the Ming Dynasty, Zheng period, or Yongle period. Not sure. I'm going to go over now. If I don't come back, there will be no more. Ru and Wen, July 24th, 2331. Ming Dynasty. This laboratory also seems to use X substance to cross time, but their target is the Ming Dynasty. In Richard's laboratory, he set the time target to the 21st century where he lived, which directly led to the appearance of a black hole in his bedroom, and he crossed over from there. So if this laboratory sets the time target to the Ming Dynasty, will someone from the Ming Dynasty come over? He thought of the ruler of Yanjing City, Chief Zhu, and his subordinate Dr. Jiangbin. The clues can all be connected, but it's too far-fetched. How could someone from the Ming Dynasty cross over and become the leader of the modern era? Even if this is just a doomsday wasteland, the Institute is an institution that has inherited the knowledge of a group of scientists before the doomsday. In addition, Ru and Wen wrote about Star Force Cage in his diary, which should be the official name of the cage. Star Power is the same name as the power of the Stargate Awakeners. Is this also a coincidence? Chang Ning continued to scroll down the document. It's not over yet. There is more content behind it. I'm back. Let's continue typing. The time parameter of the subject is 1421 AD, the 19th year of Yongle in the Ming Dynasty. As for why the interference band emitted from the Kangling mausoleum of Zhengde corresponds to the Yongle period, I have always had doubts. When the director was still there, he explained it once, but I didn't understand it at the time. I only remember that the director's conclusion was that the time parameter of the subject might be 1421 AD, the 19th year of Yongle in the Ming Dynasty, or 1425 AD, the first year of Hongxi in the Ming Dynasty, or 1521 AD, the 16th year of Zhengde in the Ming Dynasty. Choose one of these three time parameters, and which one it is will only be known after the experiment is successful. Now, I declare that the experiment is successful, and the first parameter is 1421. As for why I judge this way, after transferring the time parameter from the Star Force cage, I was actually a little dizzy, and for a short period of time, I had lost the concept of time. Later, after I came back, I was able to confirm that the experiment lasted a total of 2 hours and 31 minutes. Let's get back to the topic. After transferring the time parameters, I found myself standing in a square. It was late at night with stars hanging low in the sky. I happened to recognize this square. It was the square of the three main halls of the Forbidden City. Of course, I have been to the Palace Museum. The three main halls of Tai, Zhang and Bao are not difficult to recognize. It was very dark at that time. Many guards could be seen on the palace walls in the distance. I suddenly appeared near the back door of the Hall of Supreme Harmony. There was no one here. However, when I walked around the main gate, I looked up and saw Fengshan Hall written on it. Should this be the name of the Ming Dynasty? Did the Qing Dynasty change its name later? I'm not sure, and these are not important. In short, the defense force near the three main halls was surprisingly weak, and I was able to easily walk around the square of the three main halls. Fengshan Hall, Huage Hall, and Jinshan Hall are the names of the three main halls. The detailed structure should also be different from the current Palace Museum, but I'm not a historian, so I can't tell. The reason why I can judge that this time point is the 19th year of Yongle is because these three main halls are brand new. I could even smell the odor of wet paint. When the director gave me three possible time parameters, I checked the major events of that year one by one. The 19th year of Yongle was exactly the first year that the Forbidden City in Yanjing was put into use. Before that, the emperors of the Ming Dynasty lived in Jingling. Zhud built the Forbidden City in Yanjing and moved in at the beginning of the 19th year of Yongle. The Forbidden City is so new, it must have just been built, so the time parameter on the opposite side must be the 19th year of Yongle. Ha 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 ha, I'm really a genius. Well, I will stop here. As a human being in the 24th century, this is the last day of my life. Please call me a 15th century person from now on. Although I don't know how many days I can live in the 15th century, I decided to die there. It can be regarded as the last and only use of this research project. I have to go there quickly. The horizontal ripples brought by the time disturbance seem to affect the air over there. Before I came back, I felt that the air over there was getting hotter and hotter. Will it turn into a sea of fire in a while? I hope that the Forbidden City that Zhud just built will not be burned by me. I have to go there quickly to quell the disturbance over there. Goodbye 24th century. Ruin Wen, who is about to become a person of the 15th century. This is. Chang Ning was suddenly confused. It turned out that it was this assistant researcher who traveled to the Ming Dynasty, not a Ming Dynasty person who traveled to the 27th century. He traveled to the 19th year of Yongle, which was a full 100 years before the death of Zhu Hao's Xiao and Jiang Bin. So, the two people in Yanjing City now have nothing to do with this laboratory? The horizontal ripples of time disturbance made the air in the Forbidden City hotter and hotter in 1421. Chang Ning read many interesting books on literature and history in the 21st century, including one about the Forbidden City, which he still had some impression of. The construction of the Forbidden City in Yanjing began in 1406 and was completed at the end of 1420. In early 1421, Zhud moved the capital and lived in the newly built mansion. But he had just moved in February, and late one night in April, a strange fire broke out, burning the three main halls of the Forbidden City, Fengshan, who are gay, and Shen. Chang Ning suddenly got goosebumps. Could it be that this guy named Ruan Wen caused this? If this is true, then there is an extremely important piece of information behind it. This guy did not change history after traveling back in time. In other words, the original history includes the fact that he traveled back in time. He is part of history. Let's go through the timeline. It's like this. In 1421, a fire broke out in the forbidden city of Yanjing, burning down the 3 main halls. Then this incident was recorded by the historian. Until the 21st century, someone wrote this incident into an interesting reading material, which was read by Chang Ning. More than 300 years later, Ruan Wen, an assistant researcher in a laboratory in the suburbs of Yanjing, traveled to 1421 and ignited the fire that night. In other words, at least in the 21st century where Chang Ning lives, the fire and Ruan Wen who ignited the fire are already a certain thing. Looking at the 15th century from the 21st century, the things in the 15th century are of course certain and have already happened. But from another perspective, looking at the 24th century from the 21st century, there is something in the 24th century that is also certain and has already happened. This is very strange. Chang Ning felt that his understanding of time had suddenly become extremely distorted and confused. The words future and happened could actually be used together. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 183. Can people interfere with history? What exactly is time? In Chang Ning's previous cognition, time is like a mountain torrent. The past is the upstream of the mountain torrent, the future is the downstream of the mountain torrent, and now is the point where the peak of the flood arrives. The past time is what has happened, where the mountain torrent started, where it flowed, and what impact it caused. You can see it clearly by standing at the peak of the flood and looking back. The future time is what has not happened yet, where the mountain torrent will flow. Although there is a general trend of water flows to the lower place, you can make a rough judgment, but you cannot accurately know what will happen at each time point in the future. But after reading Ruan Wen's diary and having his own speculation, Chang Ning was shaken. Did the future things really not happen? He remembered a physics experiment he saw when he was bored watching videos in the 21st century, called the double slit interference experiment. This experiment was first done in the early 19th century. The whole experiment is very simple. Use a point as a light source, and the light emitted passes through 2 narrow slits on the path, and is finally projected onto a background board. The result of the experiment is that what is projected on the background board is not the light bands corresponding to the 2 slits, but many stripes of light and dark. This experiment shows that the propagation of light is not linear, it has the properties of waves. When passing through the 2 slits, a beam of light splits into 2 light waves, and then the 2 interfere with each other, eventually forming the stripes on the background board. In the 20th century, with the rise of quantum theory, people found that electrons, like photons, also have the same wave properties, so they used electrons to do this experiment again. When the electrons were emitted continuously, there was no difference from the initial experimental results. Later, scientists emitted electrons one by one, and after the previous electron reached the background board and formed a landing point, they emitted the second one. These electrons randomly passed through 2 different slits, but each time they passed alone. Something surprising happened. It is obvious that the electrons emitted one by one. When the number accumulates to a certain extent, you can still see the same dense stripes on the background board as when they were emitted continuously. This matter is very puzzling. If an electron does not have the properties of a wave, then there should be 2 thin lines on the background board corresponding to the 2 slits. If an electron also has the properties of a wave, then the background board should have a random landing point. After all, there is only one electron, and it is impossible to form a regular interference. However, the result observed in the experiment is that the electron is still interfered. The problem is that the interference phenomenon requires 2 waves to interfere with each other. How can an electron interfere with itself? Even if you can interfere with yourself, why is the shape of the stripes on the background board exactly the same as when the electron is continuously emitted? This shows that an electron can not only interfere with itself, but also know that there is another slit on the path it passes through, and even know how far this slit is from the slit it passes through, how long this slit is, and all other information. Please. You are just an electron. Do you need to know so many things? When the results of this experiment just came out, the entire scientific community was in an uproar, and various hypotheses were put forward, one after another, trying to explain this phenomenon. After all, it is too creepy for an electron to know so many things. In order to thoroughly explain this disturbing experiment, scientists installed two cameras on the experimental background board. The two cameras were each aimed at a slit, and the camera could capture any slit where the electron came. How exactly you move, and what kind of trajectory you take, you can't hide it under the camera. Then something even weirder happened. Under the same conditions as the last experiment, there were no dense interference fringes on the background board. This time, there were two neat thin lines on the background board. This shows that electrons do not have the properties of waves, which completely overturns the conclusions of the previous two experiments. The only difference between the latest experiment and the previous one is that a camera was installed. So the scientists removed the camera and did it again, and the dense interference fringes appeared again. So the conclusion of the experiment became that when there is a camera observing, there is nothing special about electrons. They are just small particles, and humans can launch them however they want. When there is no camera observing, the electron suddenly becomes something that knows everything and can do everything. It not only has the properties of waves, but also knows the surrounding environment outside its path. What exactly an electron is depends on whether there is a camera. To be precise, it depends on whether there is someone watching it. It's like you are watching a live football match on TV at home. Now the team you support is going to take a penalty kick. Someone tells you that whether the penalty kick will go in or not does not depend on the player's level or condition, nor on the wind speed or the field conditions, but only on whether you are watching TV at the moment of the penalty kick. If you watch TV, the ball will go in 100%, and if you don't watch it, the ball will miss 100%. This is ridiculous, isn't it? What does my watching TV at home have to do with the players taking a penalty kick? But this physics experiment expresses such a result. This is not the most ridiculous. Later, scientists invented a new way to play. At the moment the electron is emitted, there is no camera observing. During its flight, scientists quickly added a camera. As long as the camera can be set up before the electron falls on the background board, the electron will eventually fall on two narrow slits. It's as if it knew from the beginning that there would be a camera. Conversely, at the moment the electron is emitted, scientists installed a camera, but during its flight, before it falls on the background board, the camera was removed, and the electron will eventually form dense interference fringes. It was as if it knew from the beginning that the scientists were going to remove the camera. Later, the scientists were not convinced and came up with a true randomness. They themselves did not know whether the camera would appear or not, and everything was left to the program to handle randomly. The electron still cracked the true randomness of the program. If there was a camera, it would be two thin lines, and if there was no camera, it would be a bunch of dense interference fringes. When Chang Ning saw this experiment, he thought, is this electron a god? Why can it accurately predict whether the camera is there or not every time? Or is it not a prediction, but it can know the situation after the launch before each launch? Is time not a straight line for it? Does it know what will happen in the future before launching? Or is it that what is about to happen in the future causes its different states at the time of launch? This little scientific experiment once made Chang Ning fall into a kind of fear and fatalism, but it was thrown behind him not long after. After all, it is something in the microscopic world and has no impact on daily life. But what he saw today made him regain his fear again. Is it not only in the microscopic world, not only for microscopic particles such as electrons and photons? On a macro level, for example, a person's time is not a straight line. Can a person know what will happen in the future? In other words, can a person, as a particle, interfere with the entire history by himself? Chapter 184 Another possible whereabouts of the stone tablet. From the perspective of Ruan Wen's diary, it can be understood in this way. Ruan Wen is an electron who was originally in a disordered state. Chang Ning, as a camera, an observer saw Ruan Wen, and this electron instantly collapsed into a certain state. Since Chang Ning knew that in the 19th year of Yangel, the 3 major halls of the Forbidden City in Yanjing were burned down, Ruan Wen, who lived 300 years later, returned to the 19th year of Yangel through the research results of X material, and completed the act of burning down the 3 major halls. In other words, it can also be said that the appearance of Chang Ning led to the burning of the 3 major halls in the 19th year of Yangel. Then, due to the burning of the 3 major halls, Ruan Wen's experiment was finally successful and returned to the time point of the Ming dynasty. It sounds very confusing because the order of time is completely different from the concept of ordinary people. Almost all humans assume that there should be causes before results. In other words, the time point when the cause of an event occurs should be before the time point of the result of the event. But Chang Ning knew in the 21st century that the quantum theory at that time, such as the double-slit interference experiment with the addition of an observer, had overturned this statement. At least in the microscopic field, there is a phenomenon that the effect comes first and the cause comes later. But at that time, Chang Ning had not heard that in the macroscopic field. In the long history of mankind, there can also be a phenomenon that the effect comes first and the cause comes later. Now he seems to have seen one. Following this line of thought, the alien spacecraft that fell on the back of the moon is even more terrifying. The spacecraft, which was made tens of thousands or millions of years ago, was made by another civilization several light years or even dozens of light years away from the Earth. And the reason why that civilization made this spacecraft so long ago is probably the launch of the Voyager spacecraft in the United States in the 20th century on Earth. Originally, Chang Ning thought that, if he found matter X, and repaired the machine in Richard's laboratory, he could go back to the 21st century. He should immediately remind people to be careful of a supernova explosion only a few light years away from the solar system on July 20th, 2331. The gamma ray burst created by this supernova explosion will rush towards the Earth with an unstoppable momentum, destroying the DNA of most higher organisms on the Earth, causing large-scale biological extinction, and there will be only one human being in the world. At that time, only by moving all mankind to a deep enough underground in advance can the tragedy be avoided. But after reading Ruan Wen's diary and thinking about the time relationship of cause and effect, Chang Ning couldn't help but wonder if he could do this, even if he really returned to the 21st century. The most likely thing is that he can't go back to the 21st century at all. Even if he goes back, according to the current time results of the 27th century, Chang Ning will never be able to prevent the disaster from happening. This has fallen into the pessimistic argument of fatalism. Chang Ning shook his head and tried to drive out these messy thoughts in his mind, then continued to look for other clues in Ruan Wen's computer. After searching for a long time, there is still nothing. The sentence "goodbye, 24th century" is really the last sentence left by Ruan Wen on this timeline. Chang Ning knew that he was also severely exposed to gamma ray radiation, and even if he went to the Forbidden City in the 15th century, he would not live long. In the Forbidden City in 1421, did a strange person suddenly appear and die soon? Chang Ning obviously did not have this kind of unpopular knowledge, and even most people who studied Ming history would not know it. They had to look through first-hand material such as Ming Shilu to find clues. So what was Ruan Wen's final ending in the Forbidden City? It became a mystery to Chang Ning. Wait. Chang Ning suddenly thought of a very critical question. Forbidden City. When Chang Ning lived in the 21st century, his residence in Shanghai overlapped with Richard's laboratory in the 24th century in terms of geographical location. Although it spanned a time span of 600 years, Chang Ning's geographical coordinates did not change from the 21st century to the 27th century. But according to Ruan Wen's records, after he passed through the Star Force cage of the Yanshan laboratory, he arrived in the Forbidden City in the 19th year of Yangel. Time has changed, and the place has changed. Although the distance is not far, the straight line distance is only a few dozen kilometers. In the 21st or 24th century, it is less than an hour's journey. but the geographical coordinates have indeed changed, and even the altitude is completely different. So, the role of X substance can be used not only for time, but also for space. Chang Ning thought of the incident on the back of the moon recorded in Richard's computer. At that time, people dug out a stone tablet composed of X substance and sent it back to the Earth by carrier rocket. But under full monitoring, and in full view of the public, the X substance stone tablet in the rocket disappeared strangely. At that time, Chang Ning acquiesced that there might be some organs, parts, or something called a ray on this stone tablet, which could play the time characteristics of X substance, and send this stone tablet to an unknown time point in the long river of time. But now it seems, it is also possible that only the space has changed, and the stone tablet disappeared from the rocket, and appeared in some other corner of the Earth. If this is the case, will I have a chance to find this stone tablet? The time when the stone tablet was transported back was very close to the time when mankind suffered a world-destroying disaster. People at that time probably didn't expect the stone tablet to change its spatial coordinates, or even if they did, they didn't have much time to find it. The Earth is so big, and humans didn't know much about matter X at that time. If they could master the resonance technology similar to that invented by Ruan Wen's laboratory a few days before the world-destroying disaster, they would probably be able to easily detect the stone tablet and make some judgments. Unfortunately, there was no such technology, so the matter X stone tablet was lost to scientists at that time. In addition, according to the distance between Yanshan and the Forbidden City, can we assume that the spatial transferability of matter X is different from the abnormal time transferability and can only transfer a short space? If so, then even if the stone tablet has transferred its spatial coordinates, it should be near the rocket landing site at that time. Where did the rocket land at that time? Chang Ning frowned and recalled. It seemed to be somewhere in the North China grassland, north of Yanshan. Ice City? Maybe, when he is free, he can try his luck near Ice City? Just when he thought about this, Chang Ning heard a muffled sound, which seemed to come from a narrow hole. Brothers ironing. Brothers ironing. Guess where this big hole leads to? It was Yun Kai Qian's voice. Chang Ning thought of the big hole on the wall at the end of the laboratory work area that led to the inside of the mountain. When he was refreshing the computer and looking for clues, Yun Kai Qian should have gone to explore the big hole on the wall. Chapter 185 Mountain Cave. Chang Ning finally stood up from Ruan Wen's computer, stretched his back, and threw the contents and the strange thoughts behind his mind. Then he walked 2 quick steps to the cave entrance and stuck his head in. It was so dark that he didn't know how deep it was. There was only a little flashlight in the distance, moving quickly towards this side. It was Yun Kai Qian who had returned from her exploration. After a while, Yun Kai Qian jumped out of the cave entrance. Her face was not red, and she said to Chang Ning, "Brothers ironing. Brothers ironing. Do you know where this big cave leads to? Where does it lead to?" Chang Ning was also very curious why there was a big hole in the room of this laboratory, which seemed to lead directly to the belly of the mountain. You can walk all the way to the foot of the mountain along this hole. There are all strange stones inside, which is very interesting. Yun Kai Qian shone the flashlight into the cave, like offering a treasure. But it could only illuminate a few winding steps downward, and could not see anything deeper. "Let's go and take a look," Chang Ning said to Yun Kai Qian, and also called Xiang Bao and Yang Bao who were sitting and resting behind. Several people entered the cave together, turned on 4 flashlights, and the dark cave suddenly became bright. Just down from the laboratory, there is a rough staircase. No one has walked on it for a long time. The stone steps are sticky and slippery, and it is very difficult to exert force. However, the physical fitness of several people is not bad, so they walk carefully and will not slip. After walking down for dozens of meters, the stone steps suddenly stopped, and the 4 people came to a cave in the belly of the mountain. This cave seems to be a natural cast cave. The top of the cave is covered with stalactites. There are small puddles on the ground below that were hit by the dripping water on the stalactites. The stalactites here are very colorful. Under the illumination of the flashlight, red, yellow, blue, orange, brown, various colors of stones complement each other, making people feel like they have come to a psychedelic world. How is it? It looks good, right? Young Kian Kian said proudly to the three people behind her. Yang Bao opened his mouth slightly and exclaimed, "It looks good. Kian Kian, you are amazing. You can find such a beautiful place." Xiang Bao also stared at the stalactites around him and was stunned. Chang Ning had seen many cursed cave scenic spots in the 21st century, so he was not particularly surprised now. He asked young Kian Kian, "Have you found the exit here?" Young Kian Kian nodded. "Follow me." Everyone continued to follow young Kian Kian and walked forward. There was another winding road down, but there were no artificial steps in this section, all of which were natural stones. Fortunately, the slope here is much smaller than the above, and even without steps, you can barely walk. After walking for more than 10 minutes, there was a sound of rushing water in front. "Is it an underground river?" Chang Ning guessed. Sure enough, after turning a few corners, an underground river about 3 or 4 meters wide appeared in front of everyone. The river water is clear, and you can feel the coolness when standing by the river. Shine the flashlight into the river, and you can see some white, nearly transparent eyeless small fish swimming slowly in the river. The exit is over there. Young Kian Kian pointed to the downstream of the river. Walking downstream along the river, passing a difficult downhill road and several very low and narrow cave entrances, a ray of light finally came from the front. Chang Ning took a few quick steps and found that the front was the exit of the underground river. The river water continued to flow forward and flowed to the ground, turning into a stream on the ground. This should be the source of a river originating from Yanshan Mountain. However, the entire cave entrance is now blocked by the river water. The light outside can be seen through the transparent river water, but you can't walk out. You have to swim out. "Where is the outside?" Chang Ning asked young Kian Kian again. Young Kian Kian put her finger to her mouth and whispered, "I don't know either. I didn't go out." Chang Ning couldn't help but look at young Kian Kian. It was strange that this little girl didn't go out to explore after seeing this situation. After a second thought, he suddenly realized, "You can't swim." Young Kian Kian said unconvinced, "Can you swim?" Chang Ning nodded, "I really can." "Then why don't you go see where the outside is?" Young Kian Kian pouted. Chang Ning tilted his head and thought for a while. He also wanted to know where the outside was. This cave appeared on the back wall of the X-Substance laboratory in Yanjing. It must be related to the laboratory. So he didn't waste any words and took off his coat directly, leaving only the black and gold clothes that were close to his body. He held a flashlight in one hand and a laser sword in the other, and turned around and jumped into the dark river. Cold. Chang Ning's first feeling was cold. The temperature outdoors is now hovering around 15 to 25 degrees, while the temperature in the cave is much lower. Chang Ning estimated that it was only 12 or 13 degrees. But compared with the river water, the temperature in the cave is already very warm. The temperature of this river water is estimated to be not much higher than 0 degrees. But Chang Ning's current physique is not afraid of this degree of cold. He dived in and began to swim along the direction of the water flow. Standing in the cave, you can see the light outside, which means that the thickness of the mountain wall is not wide. Sure enough, after swimming only a dozen meters, Chang Ning felt a light appearing above his head. He floated to the surface of the water and looked up. He had already reached the outside of the mountain. The water rushed out from the mountain wall. The drop in this section was relatively large and the flow rate was very fast. Chang Ning fluttered a few times and swam to the shore. He found some ruins of houses here. Judging from the layout, it looked like an old world resort. The mountains and rivers here are beautiful, which is very suitable for people in big cities like Yanjing to come out occasionally, to change the environment and relax. He climbed up the mountain wall above the river outlet, and looked downstream along the direction of the river. There was a gentle slope in front, which eventually led to the plain area in the south of the Yanshan Mountains. At the end of the river, there seemed to be a large area of water. That is, should it be the Mingtomb's reservoir? Chang Ning searched his memory of traveling in the 21st century and determined that this should be the reservoir. Arriving at the reservoir, going further south, is the so-called Lost Heart Ghost Forest, where Chang Ning remembered that it was also a prosperous city before the doomsday. He retracted his gaze and carefully searched the area below. Except for the ruins of the resort, the rest are the appearance of the original forest area, nothing special. But if you insist on saying that there is something special here, there is still one. That is, when the door of the X substance laboratory above is locked, you can walk out from inside. Before the doomsday disaster, when the laboratory was operating normally, there was no reason to open a big hole in the wall. So the big hole in the wall is likely to be opened after the doomsday disaster. The outer wall of the laboratory is very solid, but the wall close to the mountain wall is ordinary cement building materials, which can be easily broken with a fire axe. Chang Ning knew that Ruan Wen was the last person to stay in the laboratory. He later went to Yangel 19th year, and it seems that he did not come back. So there is a hole in the wall of the laboratory, and this hole can lead directly to the outside world. Does it mean that after the doomsday disaster, someone else walked out of the laboratory? Who would it be? Chapter 186 Strange Materials. After making sure there were no valuable clues outside, Chang Ning swam back from the cave in trance. After climbing ashore, even with Chang Ning's physique, he shivered. Fortunately, the black and gold clothes have waterproof functions. After simply shaking off the water droplets on the clothes, he quickly put on the coat and felt a little warmer. How is it? Where is it outside? Xiao Bao came over and asked. It's the foot of this mountain. It's just not the same direction as the road we took when we came here. Is there nothing special outside? Young Qian was a little disappointed. Chang Ning shook his head. Really? Xiao Bao was also a little disappointed. With his experience as an old relic hunter, this weird secret passage must lead to a very valuable place. How could it be just a simple exit? Going through so much trouble, but there is nothing special in the end. It's just as unreasonable as taking off your pants to fart. If he said this idea, Chang Ning would definitely tell him, this exit itself is a very valuable thing. The luggage bags of the 4 people and the bone handmade that Chang Ning took out from the Zengd mausoleum were still in the laboratory, so they could not leave directly from this exit, and they had to return to the laboratory. After climbing on the slippery ground for nearly half an hour, the 4 people finally returned to the room through the big hole in the wall of the laboratory. At this time, it was dark outside. The 4 people were also tired for a day, especially Chang Ning, who not only had physical exercise, but also suffered a huge psychological shock. So they each unfolded their sleeping bags and prepared to spend the night in the laboratory. Perhaps the information that Ruan Wen brought to him was too shocking, and Chang Ning tossed and turned for a long time without falling asleep. He got up and took out a scientific research book that was still well preserved from the huge bookshelf in the director's office, opened it and read it. Sure enough, 5 minutes later, Chang Ning fell into a deep sleep. Get up and eat. In a daze, Chang Ning heard young Qian's voice ringing in his ears. When he opened his eyes, the other 3 had already gotten up. Young Qian was chewing on a fire-baked bread. This kind of meat-filled bread is really delicious. Chang Ning also turned over and started to wash up. Are you going back to Yanjing City today? Yang Bao was also chewing on the fire-baked bread next to him and asked Chang Ning while chewing. Chang Ning thought for a while. Let's tell Chen later and say that we found Kangling and wait for them to come before leaving. They were brought to this area by Chen. If it weren't for Chen's mission, Chang Ning would never have found the bone figures in Zengd's mausoleum, nor would he have found the X-substance laboratory in Yanjing. In return, Chang Ning didn't mind telling him the location of Zengd's mausoleum. Anyway, if he didn't say it, there were so many relic hunters that they might be able to find it. After searching for a while, the other 3 did not comment, so after breakfast, Chang Ning and the other 4 went down the mountain and returned to the vicinity of Kangling Mound. They contacted him through the walkie-talkie given by Chen and described the characteristics of the surrounding environment. Chen was very happy to receive the information and called all the relic hunters to gather directly in Kangling. It was estimated that they would take some time to come, so Chang Ning simply sat on the soil pile of Zengd's mausoleum and studied the bone spaceship model. This thing has 3 characteristics. The first characteristic is that it looks very similar to the Voyager and the alien spacecraft that hit the back of the moon. Like 3 twin brothers. Especially the golden record on the side. Chang Ning decided that if he could find a record player or a DVD, he must try to see if he could play the content inside. But this is a bit difficult. In the 21st century, optical drives and CD players have gradually withdrawn from the stage of history. It is estimated that this thing will be quite rare in the 24th century. At least Chang Ning has been here for so long, and he has not seen one. The second characteristic is that it has an unreasonable weight. This thing looks like it is made of bones of unknown creatures. In Chang Ning's impression, bones are a very light material. The bones of birds are generally hollow, as if they have no weight. The bones of other terrestrial animals are not very heavy, at least not heavier than metal or wood of the same volume. But this thing feels like it weighs nearly 200 kilograms. Judging from its volume, its density is far higher than that of ordinary bones or wood, and is close to the density of some heavy metals. The third characteristic is that it is harder than you can imagine. Young Qian tried to disassemble it before, but failed. Chang Ning also tried it himself, and applied ordinary force to this handmade figure, and its shape did not change at all. Even if you use a lot of force, you can't deform it, or break off a small piece from it. You know, if Chang Ning and young Qian try hard, the force they apply is estimated to be tens of tons or even hundreds of tons. This kind of force can't break this handmade figure, and its hardness exceeds all the conventional materials Chang Ning has seen. Maybe this thing just looks like some kind of bone, but it is actually made of some high-tech raw materials. Maybe it's not a replica handmade figure made of bones, it's an alien spacecraft itself. Chang Ning remembered that there was a Zheng's tomb, saying that it was salvaged from a lake by the natives, and presented to the Chinese emperor as a tribute. Maybe it really is an alien spacecraft that fell to the earth many years ago. Sure enough, I opened it violently and looked at its material. Right? Chang Ning thought for a while and made up his mind. Although this would cause damage to this thing, Chang Ning had no other way to study it. He took out the Skywalker #1 laser sword and pressed out the laser blade. Then he aimed at the end of an antenna of the aircraft and cut it gently. Well, cut off a small piece of unimportant place first to see if I can figure out what material it is made of. Unexpectedly, the laser sword cut through the antenna, and the end of the antenna did not fall off. Only a small circle of light yellow marks appeared where the laser sword passed. This is the first time Chang Ning has encountered something that the laser sword cannot cut. Before, no matter what material it was, no matter how hard it was, even the living master level lost ghost and the dead extraordinary awakener, Yun Rong, this laser sword was indestructible. Facing this spaceship, the laser sword actually only left a circle of faint marks. Chang Ning was almost certain that this was not a product from Earth. Not to mention that no animal on Earth would have such hard bones. Even the new materials on Earth that Chang Ning knew about would not be this hard, right? He was not convinced and continued to cut with the laser sword. After repeated cutting back and forth, the circle of light yellow on the antenna gradually turned into charred black, and a circle of shallow grooves was gradually deepening. Moreover, there was a burnt smell in the air, which was the smell produced by burning animal bones. What the hell? Is this thing really made of bones? What kind of creature would have such bones? Chapter 187 Attack. With Chang Ning's unremitting cutting, a small section of the antenna of the bone aircraft was finally cut off. Although the cut was charred and horrible, it was finally separated from the main body. He held this small section in his hand and felt very light, just like a real bone. Looking left and right, it looked like a piece of bone debris that was burned. Even on the charred cross section, if you look carefully, you can still see the shape of bone marrow tissue. Chang Ning was even more confused. Could it be that he had guessed wrong again? This thing is not an alien spaceship, but just a big bone handmade? If its shell material is really all bone, I'm afraid it can only be a handmade, right? No matter how hard the bone is, how can the bone be used as an antenna? How can the bone be used as a radar? It can't be used. But its hardness and weight are indeed not in line with common sense. Chang Ning was puzzled. After looking at the cut bone for a long time, he pinched the small section of the antenna hard. The small piece in his hand suddenly turned into a pile of bone powder and drifted away with the wind. It was very hard before it was cut off, but after it was cut off, it returned to the properties of normal bones. Therefore, the real secret of this spaceship is not in the outer shell. There must be something in it that can change the properties of the outer shell bones. Chang Ning shifted his attention to the body of the bone spaceship, which is an irregular polyhedron with a diameter of 30 to 40 centimeters. There must be the secret of this spaceship in it. Taking out the laser sword again, Chang Ning planned to cut open the body to see what was hidden inside. However, this body should be much more difficult to cut than the antenna. It is large in size and a key part. It must have a harder protection. Just when he was about to start, he suddenly heard footsteps coming from the forest in the distance. Looking up, it turned out that Chen was walking over with 7 or 8 relic hunters. Chang Ning put down the thing in his hand, which he didn't know whether it was a figurine or a spaceship, and stood up to greet Chen, saying with a smile, "You came so soon. I thought it would take at least 1 or 2 hours." Chen also came over with a smile. It turned out that their team of relic hunters had found the vicinity of Maoling and guessed that these mausoleums were connected, so they continued to search nearby and then met another team of people. In fact, they were very close just now. Even if Chang Ning didn't give them any news, they would definitely find Kangling in 1 or 2 days. Huh? Why is there a big hole on it? Chen came over and saw the robbery hole dug by Chang Ning next to the pile of soil of the mausoleum. "Oh, there is something in it, and it is destined to be with me." Chang Ning made up a nonsense. This robbery hole looked very fresh. It was obviously dug in the past 2 days. There was no way to shirk it. Chang Ning had to admit that he dug it himself. Chen nodded and said nothing more. The task he received was just to find this Kangling, not to protect the integrity of the mausoleum. He made a big circle around Kang Mausoleum and finally stuck a small flag into the ground near the entrance of the tunnel. Chang Ning saw the style of the small flag, which should be a positioning device used in military combat exercises. Chen might rely on this to inform the location of Jiangbin's mausoleum and get his reward. Afterwards, several teams of relic hunters came to this place one after another. The mission was completed, and everyone was very relaxed. Although it was not the mission target found by their team, they could not get the big reward, but each team also had a part of the reward, so this trip would not be in vain. The relic hunters who gathered together lit a bonfire near Zeng's mausoleum and cooked game, turning this mausoleum into an auto-mounting scene. There was also a team that never came. Chen contacted them, but there was no response. It was estimated that they did not know what danger they encountered, and the whole team was wiped out. This kind of thing is very common in the career of relic hunters, and everyone has long been accustomed to it. Now that there were many people, Chang Ning temporarily stopped cutting. He wrapped the bone spaceship with a large piece of cloth and carried it on his back, preparing to go back to Yanjing City and then find a quiet place to study it carefully. Wait another half an hour. If the last team doesn't come, we'll set off first. Chen said to the relic hunters who were barbecuing. There was no friendship between their teams, so of course there were no opinions. Chang Ning and his friends were not in a hurry, and they waited patiently for Chen to go back to Yanjing City together. Half an hour passed in a flash. Chen looked at the mechanical watch on his wrist, stood up and said, "Let's go back to Yanjing City to hand in the task." The relic hunters also stood up, extinguished the bonfire on the ground, and followed. After Chang Ning stood up, he looked at the big hole on the edge of Kangling's burial mound and thought carefully about whether there were any clues pulled down before. Should I go down and take another look? After learning about Ruan Wen's diary in the laboratory, Chang Ning felt that there should be something in this Zeng tomb that he had overlooked, but he couldn't say what it was. Now that he was about to go back, he was a little hesitant about whether he should go down again. While he was hesitating, the team of relic hunters had already set out. Chang Ning turned around the entrance of the tunnel twice in annoyance. Just as he was about to call Yun Kai and Qian and the others to follow Chen's team, he heard a cry from the direction of the team. "Drive Jiang, what do you mean?" Chen's voice came from the forest a few hundred meters away, sounding very angry. Chang Ning thought it was not good. Could it be that the fat guy Jiangbin wanted to rob the robbers and didn't want to pay, so he just killed all the hired relic hunters? So he hurried to the relic hunters team. Just as he made a move, he heard a burst of dense gunfire from the forest. Da 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 da. The gunfire was accompanied by screams. Most of these relic hunters are primary and advanced awakeners, and only a few team leaders may reach the master level. When facing the regular army of Yanjing City, which has awakened all its members and has the advantage of gunfire, they are powerless to resist. Chang Ning accelerated suddenly and arrived in the middle of the forest in a few seconds. He saw a team of about 50 Yanjing City Tiwei soldiers still firing. Most of the relic hunters lying on the ground opposite had been shot in the vitals and were dead. The female relic hunter who had spoken rudely to Chang Ning and Yang Bao before was also among them. Only 3 people hid behind a thick enough tree in time and were still dealing with the army on the opposite side. Chen was one of the 3 people. He was shot in the left arm and his combat effectiveness was greatly reduced. He could only rely on the cover of the trees to support himself. "Stop!" Chang Ning shouted from a distance and then quickly came to the battlefield. "Huang! Mr. Huang!" Jiang Bin was stunned. He didn't expect that the distinguished guest in Yanjing City, Mr. Huang, the young master of etching, would also appear here. Chang Ning left in a hurry. Young Qian, Yang Bao, Xiang Bao and others were still behind and did not enter the forest. Seeing that Chang Ning was alone, Jiang Bin was terrified. He gritted his teeth and whispered to the soldier next to him, "Keep shooting and kill him." Chapter 188 Torture. The soldiers followed the order faithfully, pointing their guns at Chang Ning, with flames flying. But how could such a bullet from dozens of meters away hit Chang Ning now? His speed of bursting out in a short distance was estimated to be not much slower than that of a bullet, and his figure moving at a high speed was even more impossible to be captured by the gun. He stepped lightly, and his figure was like a ghost in the woods, performing Brownian motion. The guns of those soldiers could not keep up with Chang Ning's speed. Jiang Bin was dumbfounded. He only knew that the 2 maids of Mr. Huang were Grandmaster level awakeners, but he had never heard that Mr. Huang himself was so fierce. Judging from the speed, they were either Gale awakeners above the master level, or other Shaman awakeners above the Grandmaster level. No matter which one it was, it meant that thermal weapons could basically not hurt Chang Ning. Even ordinary awakeners holding thermal weapons would not work. Unless they were Grandmaster level figures, whose strength was very close to Chang Ning, they could rely on thermal weapons to hurt him. Just when Jiang Bin was still guessing which one Chang Ning was, he heard a few crisp clangs, and the guns of the soldiers around him twisted into a pile of scrap metal and fell to the ground. Suddenly, he felt his feet lighten, and he was lifted up. "Okay, no need to guess, it's another master." Jiang Bin twitched his mouth. "Mr. Huang, let's talk it over, let's talk it over." Seeing that their boss was restrained, the soldiers could only stop shooting and stared blankly in the direction of Chang Ning. At this time, Yang Qian, Xiang Bao and Yang Bao also followed. Chang Ning turned around and said to them, "Go and see how Uncle Zun is doing." Xiang Bao, the old relic hunter, had some experience in treating external injuries. He walked over and took a look at Zun Chen's wound. "It's okay, just an ordinary gunshot wound. Not much bleeding, and no vital injuries." Chang Ning nodded and saw Xiang Bao bandaging Zun Chen, then turned around and looked at Jiang Bin in his hand. "Drive Jiang, your leader wanted to cooperate with me the day before yesterday to purchase vehicles. Now it seems that the cooperation is probably not going to work." Jiang Bin smiled bitterly. "Misunderstanding, it's all misunderstanding." Chang Ning's face fell cold. "Misunderstanding? I seemed to hear Dr. Jiang ordering his men to kill me just now. Is this also a misunderstanding? Forget it, I'll go talk to Chief ZHU. Since there is such a misunderstanding, there is no need for us to cooperate." He was sure that Jiang Bin came here without telling Chief ZHU in Yanjing City, not to mention the fact that he was shot, which could not have been ordered by Chief ZHU. So they wanted to use the traditional art of threatening and complaining to force Jiang Bin to tell the truth. Sure enough, Jiang Bin was so scared that he waved his hands repeatedly. "It was really a misunderstanding. My old eyes were blurry, and I didn't see that it was you, Mr. Huang, who was here. I thought it was that group of rebels." "That group of rebels?" Chang Ning frowned. "Yes. This group of people are the relic hunters we hired, but they appeared near the ancestral tomb of our leader's family, intending to dig up the ancestral tomb of our leader. What else could it be but rebellion?" Jiang Bin gradually calmed down and spoke more fluently. "You're talking nonsense. Zun Chen, who was being bandaged, said angrily, "It was you who hired us to find Chang Ning. Why did you say it was your leader's ancestral tomb when we found it? If there is any rebellion, it's you who is rebelling." Jiangbin continued to be stubborn. "I clearly hired you to clean up the forest of crazy ghosts. Now we haven't cleaned up many crazy ghosts, but you ran to the ancestral tomb of our leader's family." Chang Ning interrupted him before he finished speaking, looked at him with a look of a fool and said, "Didn't Wang Yun tell you that I have known this group of relic hunters for a long time?" "Ah." Jiang Bin panicked again. "They have also been to Chen?" Chang Ning snorted. "Be honest with me and tell me clearly, what do you want to do when you are looking for Chang Ning?" Jiang Bin murmured, "How could I look for the leader's ancestral tomb?" As he spoke, his eyes rolled wildly, and he tilted his mouth to signal Chang Ning to the soldiers behind him. Chang Ning understood, lifted Jiang Bin and shook him, and said to the soldiers behind Jiang Bin, "You all step back 100 steps. Otherwise I will strangle him to death." Jiang Bin cooperated by shaking his fat arms and said, "Everyone step back. Everyone step back." The soldiers looked at each other for a few times, turned around and stepped back about 100 meters, and stood there far away. Chang Ning turned to Jiang Bin and said, "Now you can talk, right? You said this is the ancestral tomb of Chief Zhu. Could it be that Chief Zhu's ancestors were from the Ming Dynasty royal family?" Jiang Bin was surprised. "You actually know the Ming Dynasty royal family? You must know that in this doomsday environment, there are not many people who can read and write. If you want to read books, everyone will read some books related to survival, or books on science and technology to develop productivity. No one wants to read history books from 1,000 years ago. This stuff is of no help to life in the doomsday." Jiang Bin was very shocked that Chang Ning could say the word Ming Dynasty. Chang Ning pouted, "Now I'm asking you, not you asking me." Jiang Bin nodded quickly and said, "Yes. It's the royal family of the Ming Dynasty. Their ancestral jade seal is still preserved after the end of the world." Chang Ning snorted. If he was really a descendant of the royal family of the Ming Dynasty and hid the imperial jade seal, it would be impossible for him to survive the early Qing Dynasty. Even if he survived by chance, it has been nearly 1,000 years now. What is the probability that he can still keep it? This jade seal should be forged with a high probability. After all, in the 21st century, similar aging technology can already be mistaken for the real thing. However, he did not refute Jiang Bin, but continued to ask, "Since your leader is a descendant of the royal family of the Ming Dynasty, what are you looking for the tomb of the Ming Dynasty emperor?" "This." Jiang Bin hesitated again. "You also need to find the tomb of Emperor Zheng specifically. Is there any good thing buried under it?" Chang Ning asked again. Jiang Bin twitched his mouth. This Mr. Huang even knew about Emperor Zheng. He doesn't look like a human being in the end of the world at all. Chang Ning stared at him, his eyes gradually becoming fierce. Jiang Bin trembled. "I'll tell you. I'll tell you. Am I not doing scientific research in Yanjing City? Archaeology is also a kind of science, right? Although this is the chief's ancestral tomb, it is also of great archaeological value." Chang Ning laughed angrily. "Do you think I'm a child? You want to lie to me with such words?" Jiang Bin's mouth was moist, and he said nothing more. Chang Ning said coldly, "Tell me, don't you want to say it, or can't remember it? If you can't remember it, I can help you recall it." As he said that, his figure flashed, grabbed Jiang Bin's neck, and lifted him to the other side of the mountain behind the Zheng mausoleum, to the water outlet leading to the cave behind the X-substance laboratory in the mountain. Standing on the ruins of the old world resort, looking at the gurgling water flowing from the mountainside, Chang Ning directly picked up Jiang Bin and immersed him in the cold water, then asked him, "Do you remember something?" Jiang Bin looked at Chang Ning as if he was looking at a monster. "Who are you?" Chang Ning raised his hand and slapped him. "I said I was asking you, not you. Why are you still asking?" Jiang Bin looked at Chang Ning, then turned back to look at the cave where the underground river flowed out, and after a while, he slowly spoke. Chapter 189 The Legendary Life of a Little Fatty. In the 16th year of Ming Zheng, 1521 AD, Emperor Zhu Hao's Hao fell into the water during his southern tour. He could not swim, and after a while of struggling, he was rescued by his personal guards, but the water choked his lungs, and he caught a cold, which caused pneumonia. Zhu Hao's Hao had not been in good health since he was a child, and his health deteriorated after this illness. The Southern Tour team immediately returned to Yanjing City, and after living in the leopard house for 3 months, he died. Accompanying Zhu Hao's Hao on the Southern Tour was Jiang Bin, a flatterer who had been favored by him for more than 10 years. Jiang Bin was hated by everyone in the Zheng dynasty, and only Zhu Hao's Hao appreciated him, and was his only backer. As soon as Zhu Hao's Hao died, Jiang Bin panicked. He began to contact his subordinates in Yanjing, intending to protect himself. But before he could take further action, he was arrested by Yang Ting, the chief minister of the cabinet, and Zhu Hao's Hao's old mother, Empress Dowager Zhang, and his family was confiscated, and he was imprisoned. After Zhu Hao's Hao's cousin Emperor Jiajing ascended the throne, Jiang Bin was crucified. Like his predecessor Li Yujin, he was dragged to Keishikao and cut into pieces. The above is a record in history books. What is not recorded in history books is that Jiang Bin was Zhu Hao's Hao's adopted son and was given the surname Zhu, but he also had 12 adopted sons, all of whom followed his surname Jiang. Among these 12 adopted sons, there was a little fat boy who participated in the whole process from Zheng's Southern Tour to Jiang Bin's crucifixion. This little fat boy was handsome and sweet-mouthed, and Jiang Bin liked him very much, so much that Jiang Bin took him with him when he followed the emperor on a tour. Originally, Jiang Bin planned to give his adopted sons a stage to show on the battlefield of pacifying the Ningguang rebellion. He himself was appreciated by Zhu Hao's Hao for his bravery and military exploits, and his adopted sons could do the same. After his adopted sons gained greater power, he also gained greater power. But what they didn't expect was that when they were still on the way, they heard that Wang Shuren had put down the rebellion of Prince Ning, and even Prince Ning himself was captured. There was no more war to fight, and they had to look for another opportunity to make achievements. Jiang Bin's fat godfather breathed a sigh of relief. What's the point of fighting and killing? Wouldn't it be better to read more books and study? His favorites were mathematical classics such as 9 chapters on the mathematical art and 9 chapters on the mathematical book, and he also had some knowledge of Taoist lead and Mercury techniques. Although his godfather was a rough man who only knew how to chop people and flatter, he didn't like martial arts at all. Since Prince Ning had been captured, there was no need to fight, which was great. While reading, he played with his godfather and the emperor's grandfather. Unexpected things happen. Before returning to Yanjing, the emperor's grandfather fell ill. Not long after returning to Beijing, the emperor's grandfather actually collapsed. The godfather was like a lost dog, wandering around like a headless fly, but he was eventually arrested by the cabinet ministers in the court and the empress dowager in the harem. The Jiaiwei also came to his house and began to search the house. Everyone in the mansion was trembling with fear. The godfather's wives, his biological sons and his godsons all knelt in the yard, waiting for an unknown fate. The fat boy took advantage of the chaos to run to a side room in the backyard, took a small box and ran away. The people who searched the house only focused on the gold, silver and jewelry in Jiang Bin's house, his wives and children, and didn't care much about an insignificant godson. The box that the fat boy took away was a bone tool. This thing was magical. As long as someone held the box, they would be invulnerable to swords and guns. In the entire Jiang Bin's mansion, only Jiang Bin himself and a few of his confidants knew the real magic of this box. Now after the search and beheading, it is estimated that the only person who knows about it is the fat boy. The box was given to Jiang Bin by Zhu Hao's Hao. The little fat boy knew that there was another thing that matched the box in the treasury of the imperial palace. That thing was truly magical and could be called a divine artifact. For a while, the emperor had been holding it and thinking about something. The little fat boy even saw the emperor fly up and leave the bed more than a foot high when he was sitting cross-legged in meditation. Could this be something that could make people immortal? In those years, the emperor had devoted himself to studying Sanskrit and believed that the thing was a treasure related to Buddha. He searched for records of this strange-shaped bone tool in countless Buddhist scriptures, hoping to find the correct way to use it. But the little fat boy had seen it in the palace records. The thing was not from India at all, but was a tribute from Kunlun slaves when the eunuchs and Bao went to the west during the Yongle period. The emperor never looked at that thing, so he didn't know this clue. The little fat boy would not tell him about this matter. If he could become an immortal, the little fat boy hoped that the immortal would be himself. Now the emperor has collapsed, his godfather is dead, and the new emperor has just ascended the throne. He took the small box that matched the artifact, used the Forbidden City pass token left by his godfather, and sneaked into the palace. Although he had been with the emperor for several years, the little fat man had never been to the Forbidden City. He had always been in the leopard room. The vastness of the Forbidden City was beyond his imagination. He wandered around aimlessly in it, hoping to find the treasure house where the artifact was stored. But his sneaky appearance soon aroused the suspicion of the eunuchs and guards on duty. The little fat man panicked and began to run away. The guards began to chase him. This chase took him to the vicinity of the function hall. The little fat man couldn't run anymore. He held the small box and squatted on the ground, ready to accept the guards' fists and feet. The guards directly put on their knives. They had to ensure the absolute safety of the Forbidden City. This little fat man, who was suspected of being an assassin, first cut the tendons of his limbs and then treat him. But the little fat man holding the box was invulnerable at this moment. The guards gradually increased their strength, but still failed to break his defense. The guards began to panic, and finally someone chopped the little fat man's neck with a knife. The little fat man felt a pain in his neck and held the small box in his hand tighter. At this time, a miracle happened. The surrounding function hall, the square of the Forbidden City, and even the guards who beat him began to become blurred. The little fat man's eyes gradually became dark. Am I dead? He thought so, but found that he was still breathing and his heart beat. But for some reason, he was in complete darkness. He groped around and finally touched some papers. Trembling, he took out the fire and lit the paper. He found himself in a secret room he had never seen before. All the furniture and furnishings here have never appeared in the Ming Dynasty. Is this the fairyland? The little fat man explored the surroundings with the flame of the lit paper and confirmed that this was a completely sealed space. Just when he began to despair, he heard the sound of dripping water in a wall. There is a cave behind the wall. He searched around and found an axe stored behind the glass mirror. He used this axe to split the wall. He groped in the dark and entered the cave behind the wall. The slope was steep and the ground was slippery, so he simply chiseled a few steps and then slowly explored outside. Fortunately, there was water in the cave, so he didn't drink himself to death. He didn't know how long he had been groping in the dark, but he finally saw a ray of light. Without hesitation, he dived out of the cave, and when he stuck his head out, he saw the ruins of this old world resort. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 190, Conjecture. So how did you become Dr. Jiang of Yanjing City? Jiangban's fat face twitched, and a look of reminiscence emerged. After coming out of here, I walked downstream along the river, past a big lake and a forest, and then saw people. Chang Ning curled his lips. This fat man actually crossed the Lost Heart Ghost forest like this? Wasn't he dealt with by the Lost Heart Ghost? That was the patrol team of Yanjing City. I was taken back and met the former chief. Jiangbin was a little excited. The former chief looks exactly like the emperor. The former chief of Yanjing City actually looks very similar to Emperor Zheng. Chang Ning was a little curious, so he asked, could it be that the former chief of Yanjing City is Emperor Zheng? Like you, he came from the Ming Dynasty? Jiangbin shook his head. They just look alike, but their words and deeds are completely different. I talked to him about some things about the leopard house and his godfather, and he was also very confused and didn't know what I was talking about. In Jiangbin's narration, he was recruited into the team of Yanjing City after he showed the characteristics of being invulnerable to swords and guns with the help of the small bone box. Then, he imitated his godfather and kept flattering the former chief, gradually gaining his trust. He began to check all the text materials that could be found near Yanjing City and gradually realized that it was now 1,000 years after the death of Emperor Zheng. Not only that, he also learned a lot of modern scientific concepts from the books left by the predecessors of the institute and gradually transformed into a researcher at the institute. And the former chief claimed to be a descendant of the Ming dynasty royal family, and he believed it without a doubt. After all, they looked too similar. Later, the former head passed away. No, after the former head passed away, Jiang Bin had climbed to the top of the entire institute and was on par with the commander of the army. At this time, he remembered his original purpose again, so he moved from the bunker in Zishan to Yanjing City, searching for clues about the artifact around the Forbidden City all day. The Ming dynasty had long since fallen, and the Forbidden City had been used as a museum for hundreds of years. Jiang Bin certainly couldn't find any clues. Finally, he suddenly thought that, since the artifact was valued by the emperor and studied for a long time, would it be buried in his mausoleum after the emperor died? But the mausoleum of the Ming dynasty emperor is also the ancestral tomb of the head of the institute, so he certainly can't dig it openly. So he secretly hired a team of relic hunters to find the location of Chang Ning and kill him. Then he would have the opportunity to go down to the emperor's eternal resting place to take a look. The whole thing is like this. Jiang Bin blinked his eyes and stared at Chang Ning with an innocent look. Chang Ning touched his chin and quickly judged in his heart how many of the words this person said were true. First of all, he knew the laboratory on the mountainside and the cave on the back wall of the laboratory, which proved that he really came out of the laboratory. Chang Ning opened the big iron door outside the laboratory by cutting it continuously with a laser sword. Without a sharp weapon like a laser sword, if he wanted to get out of the closed laboratory, he could only go through the cave behind the wall. And he could only appear in the laboratory after the apocalypse through the Starforce cage. This device is the experimental result of the X-substance laboratory, which can change the time coordinates and achieve the effect of crossing. Therefore, this fat man came from a different time and space, and this should be very credible. Secondly, the artifact he described should be the bone thing he found in the Zheng mausoleum. I don't know if it is a big handmade or a real alien aircraft. There are some very strange things about this thing, such as its shape, density, hardness, etc. But can you become an immortal by holding it? Can you fly more than a foot high? Chang Ning expressed doubts about this. In addition, this artifact also has a matching bone box, which he described as being in his hand. So since ZHU House Xiao discovered the peculiarity of the artifact, why did he reward Jiang Bin with the matching box? Hello, everyone, let's become immortals together? Chang Ning didn't believe it. Even if Jiang Bin really had that box, it should be stolen. And Zheng didn't know that it was a tribute brought back by the eunuch Sanbao, which Chang Ning didn't believe. In the 21st century, he read a lot of novels with the Zheng dynasty as the background, and also checked the corresponding historical materials. Emperor Zheng, you say absurd, it's really absurd. But he is definitely not stupid. On the contrary, he is still a very smart person, just likes to do all kinds of things, and is too lazy to care about government affairs. And once he really wants to do something, he will show a strong IQ and execution. If he really has been studying the artifact for several years, at least he must know the origin of the artifact. Then, this fat man named Jiang Bin claimed to be the godson of Jiang Bin, ZHU House Xiao's favorite. Coming to a different time and space, using his godfather's name as a pseudonym, it's no big deal to act here. But Jiang Bin, in Chang Ning's impression, is a cunning and treacherous person. How could he have so many godsons and care about them wholeheartedly, wanting to lead them to achieve success? Chang Ning himself doesn't believe it. So the true identity of this fat man is in doubt. Chang Ning suspects that he is most likely not Jiang Bin's godson, but some other identity. Of course, he is unlikely to be Jiang Bin himself, because historical records show that Jiang Bin was indeed cut into pieces. Even if Jiang Bin found a substitute to die, the appearance of this fat man is completely wrong. When Jiang Bin was a frontier general, he participated in the suppression of the peasant uprising during the Zheng period. When he was suppressing the Liu and Liu uprising, he was hit by an arrow on his face, which crossed his entire cheek, leaving a huge scar. The story of this scar is also one of the important reasons why he was favored by Emperor Zheng, and ZHU House Xiao thought he was brave in battle. So, if we take a comprehensive view, this fat man should indeed come from ancient time and space, and it is most likely that he came from the Zheng period of the Ming dynasty. But his identity and the previous story are very watery, and it feels like there are many fabricated elements. Ruanwen went there through the star power cage in 1421, and Jiangbin came here through the star power cage in 1521. There is exactly 100 years in between. What's the point? Moreover, according to Ruanwen, the X substance in the star power cage should have been almost consumed when he went to the Yangel period. How could there be energy for Jiangbin to travel through? Could it be a small bone box? This box and the big handmade also contained something similar to X substance. Chang Ning looked at Jiangbin, who was still shaking, and had a plan in his mind. In any case, he would take his small bone box first. If it is paired with the big handmade he found in the Zheng mausoleum, will something unexpected happen? Chapter 191 Method of Mass Producing Awakened Ones. Where is the box? Chang Ning continued to interrogate Jiangbin. It's not with me. It's in the bunker in Zishan. Jiangbin's fat face trembled, and he looked flattering. In the bunker? Are you kidding? You came such a long way from Yanjing City, and passed through a forest of crazy ghosts, to come here to silence the relic hunters. You told me that you didn't bring the box for such a dangerous thing. Chang Ning's face became fierce. I really didn't bring it. Jiangbin hurriedly said, I usually put the artifact box in the bunker. Chang Ning threw him to the ground of the ruins. Take it off. Huh. Jiangbin's eyes widened. Take it off. Chang Ning shouted again. Oh. Jiangbin didn't waste any words. He unbuttoned his clothes and began to take them off, from his coat to his pants. In the end, he was left with only a pair of shorts, revealing his fat belly and shivering next to the cold water. Chang Ning flipped through the guy's clothes and found a pistol, a short knife, an ID card used by the institute, and many keys. There was really no box-like thing. He went on to ask, that ZHU House Xiao is the magic weapon of your great-grandfather. Do you know what it looks like, and how to use it? Jiangbin raised his eyes and recalled. It looked very strange, and I couldn't describe it clearly. I just remember that there were 2 boards and several long wires on it. Chang Ning nodded. It seemed to be the thing he found. Jiangbin went on, as for how to use it, of course I don't know, and Grandpa Emperor doesn't know either, otherwise he wouldn't have died, and would have become a god long ago. But what? I suspect the world-destroying disaster 300 years ago may be related to that artifact. You see, after the world-destroying disaster, many people awakened. Isn't this the ability of gods? Mountain mover, giant spirit, gale, somersault cloud. Right? Before doomsday, how could ordinary people imagine these? They are all methods of immortals. Grandpa Emperor must have moved some mechanism on the artifact at that time, which led to the doomsday disaster. It is also an opportunity for ordinary people to become gods and immortals. Jiangbin became more and more excited as he spoke. Not only does it rely on God's reward, people can also strive for it themselves. Even people who don't have any mutations can get the ability of an awakener. Chang Ning thought of the strange awakening of all staff in the Yanjing City Research Institute and interrupted and asked, how do ordinary people get the ability of an awakener? Jiangbin looked at Chang Ning in surprise. His eyes seemed to say, how could you ask such a stupid question? Chang Ning went up and slapped him. Hurry up and tell me. Jiangbin's fat body trembled. I'll tell you. It's gland transplantation. This method has been everywhere for a long time. Many people knew it 200 years ago. Gland transplantation? Chang Ning thought of when he first came to this era. He saw Zhen Yang transplant a thymus of an evil beast to Xiao Da in Yao Town, turning Xiao Da from an ordinary person into a primary awakener. But evil beasts are not very common. A human gathering point can encounter them 8 or 10 times a year, which is already a frequent attack. And it is difficult for ordinary evil beasts to separate Force Core and Star Core, 2 things that are very suitable for transplantation. It's good if 1 or 2 out of 10 evil beasts can have them. Otherwise, Yao Town would not have only obtained the Force Core of that land shark for so long. You have an army of 500 people in Yanjing City. Do you have the Force Cores or Star Cores of 500 evil beasts? Chang Ning raised this question. Jiangbin smiled cautiously. No, there are not so many evil beast resources. In fact, most people have transplanted glands from human awakeners and insane ghosts. What? Chang Ning's eyes widened. Human awakeners? You killed other awakeners and transplanted glands to your army? Jiangbin saw Chang Ning's reaction and was a little scared. He swallowed his saliva and said, "We didn't kill innocent people indiscriminately. Most of them were insane ghosts and captive barbarians raised by ourselves. People from Bingcheng and Jincheng, as well as relic hunters and merchants who came and went, we would not touch them." Chang Ning thought of the people from Jinghe City who they saw near Jinmenwei when they just got off the boat. Obviously, there was no awakener among that group of people, and they could only rely on the physical strength of ordinary people to chase prey. They were kept in captivity by the people of Yanjing City as barbarians, and they were not allowed to leave the territory divided by the research institute. And once a child among them awakens in the Black Moon, it is estimated that they will be captured by the people of Yanjing City and used as props for their own promotion. Chang Ning didn't care much about them using insane ghosts or evil beasts to advance, but using living humans, and basically children who had just awakened in the Black Moon, as their own awakening and advancement tools, was simply too dark. Jiangbin continued to narrate, "We have a complete and scientific method of gland extraction and transplantation, which basically will not produce rejection reactions, nor will it reduce the energy of the gland nucleus. Of course, human gland nuclei are the best, whether they are star nuclei or force nuclei, they are relatively easy to operate. Evil beasts and insane ghosts can easily cause the transplanted person to mutate." Before he finished speaking, Chang Ning slapped him again, directly knocking Jiangbin to the ground. What a beast. Jiangbin lost several teeth, but he was still smiling. "Yes, beast. I'm a beast." Chang Ning looked at his professional facial expression management when facing people who were stronger than him, and suddenly believed that he was really Jiangbin's godson, and he had learned a whole set of flattery skills. He shook his head. "Inside the Kangling mausoleum, are there any other good things besides the artifact?" Jiangbin continued to answer with a smile, blood gushing out of the corners of his mouth. "I'm not sure about this. I haven't been to the Emperor's mausoleum to see it. I just got here and you, Mr. Huang, pulled me here to talk, right?" Chang Ning nodded. He just had a feeling that there should be something related to X substance in the Zengd mausoleum. He asked Jiangbin to put on his clothes and dragged him back to the vicinity of Kangling again. Here, Yun Kai and Qian, Xiang Bao and Yang Bao were still protecting Shen and others, confronting the soldiers of Yanjing City. After Chang Ning returned here, he said to Jiangbin in his hand, "Let them all throw their guns on the ground, and then open their marching backpacks and throw them on the ground." He suspected that the small box Jiangbin mentioned might be held by his confidant. Jiangbin did it obediently. It must be said that the soldiers of Yanjing City really executed orders without hesitation. After listening to Jiangbin's instructions, they all did it immediately, and some even poured out the contents of their bags considerately. Chang Ning and Xiang Bao walked forward and checked one by one. Indeed, there was nothing. Did Jiangbin really store the small box in the bunker? Or did he use this excuse to trick Chang Ning into the bunker? After all, that was the strongest place in the Yanjing City Research Institute. Chang Ning frowned and turned back and said, "Where did you put the box in the bunker?" After saying that, his eyes suddenly shrank. Where is Jiangbin? Chapter 190 To Kill the Fatty. Where is he? Chang Ning looked behind him. He had just put Jiangbin in that position and then went to check the soldiers' backpacks. It took only about 10 seconds. Yun Kai and Qian and Yang Bao shook their heads, indicating that they didn't see it either. Yang Bao said, "I didn't notice how he disappeared. It was as if he wasn't there in the first place. He disappeared so naturally." Chang Ning frowned and looked around. There was nothing unusual around him. Xiang Bao next to him spoke, "I know this. Isn't my Stargate ability similar?" Chang Ning remembered the scene when Xiang Bao was trapped in the 4-story warehouse in Yancheng. In addition to Jifeng's Skygate ability, he also awakened a Stargate ability, which can connect 2 points in space, equivalent to Flash. He looked at the Zengd mausoleum next to him in a daze. There was only a space in the tomb nearby that could allow Jiangbin to flash. Without hesitation, Chang Ning turned around and went into the mausoleum through the recently dug hole. As soon as he came in, he heard a creak, which was the sound of the heavy door opening. Chang Ning skipped the front hall and came to the middle hall where the throne of Zengd was placed. He saw the white marble door leading to the main tomb in the middle hall slowly open from the inside, and Jiang Bin poked his head out. Seeing Chang Ning, Jiang Bin was stunned and said for a long time, "How did you get down?" Chang Ning shook his head. "Didn't you take a look around the mausoleum before coming in?" "I dug a hole to the bottom yesterday." Jiang Bin opened his mouth, not knowing what to say. He originally thought that he disappeared in an instant, and Chang Ning must not know where he went. Even if he thought he had entered the mausoleum, it would take dozens of minutes to dig the tomb. With this time, he would have finished his business and escaped. He didn't expect that he and Chang Ning came down one after another, which was very embarrassing. He smiled at Chang Ning gently. "Mr. Huang, I came here to find the Emperor's artifact, and I'm going to take it out to present it to you." Chang Ning nodded. "Thank you for your kindness. Bring it here." He saw that Jiang Bin obviously had something in his hand. The artifact is not in the Emperor's bedroom. It's probably in the side room next to the funeral. "Let's go in and take a look." As he said that, Jiang Bin put the thing in his hand into his arms and walked to the side room with a smile. Chang Ning walked to his side in a few steps, reached out and grabbed his collar again, lifted him up, and stretched out his other hand and said, "Bring it here." "What?" Jiang Bin wanted to play dumb, but looking at Chang Ning's increasingly fierce eyes, he finally smiled and said, "Mr. Huang, please look, this is the small box I mentioned." As he said that, he took out a bone box from his arms and was grabbed by Chang Ning. The length of this box is about 20 centimeters, and the overall size is similar to a pencil case. The whole body is also made of unknown bones, ivory white. It was not heavy in the hand. Although it felt heavier than ordinary bones, it was much lighter than the flying machine. Chang Ning threw Jiang Bin out and held the box with both hands. Under the light of the flashlight, there was no gap on the box. He carefully searched the 6 sides of the box and found no place to open it, but when the box was shaken in his hand, he could clearly hear the sound of liquid flowing inside. "Did you find this box in the main tomb?" Chang Ning asked Jiang Bin. Jiang Bin was looking into the side room with a sneaky look. When he heard Chang Ning's question, he quickly retracted his head and said, "Yes, Mr. Huang, it's inside. I'll take you in to see it." As he said that, he turned around and walked to the inside of the white marble door. Chang Ning followed and slipped into the door. Bang! A loud noise rang in Chang Ning's ears, and his body seemed to be hit by a huge hammer. The whole person staggered back a few steps. Looking closely, it was Jiang Bin holding a simple style fire gun behind the door, firing at Chang Ning. This should be a flintlock rifle. In Chang Ning's impression, this kind of firearm did not appear in Europe until the 17th and 18th centuries. Why is there one in the Zengd mausoleum? However, he did not have time to think about it. He stepped forward and snatched the gun from Jiang Bin's hand and then slapped him again, knocking Jiang Bin 3 or 4 meters away and fell next to the coffin of Emperor Zengd. After several slaps from Chang Ning, Jiang Bin's entire face was swollen, like a pig's head. Almost all of his teeth were loose and fell off. He smiled and said to Chang Ning with a crying voice, "It went off accidentally, it went off accidentally. Grandpa Huang's gun always went off accidentally before. This kind of flintlock rifle has greater lethality than many modern pistols. At a distance of less than 1 meter, even a master level awakener can break the defense." Before Jiang Bin walked out of the main tomb, he checked the preservation of the gun and added gunpowder. The gun was placed behind the main door of the tomb, and the people who just came in could not have noticed it. So he wanted to use this gun to sneak attack Chang Ning. Even if he couldn't kill him, he aimed at the vital point, and once the defense was broken, he would always be seriously injured. Who would have thought that Chang Ning just took a few steps back and was unharmed? Chang Ning patted the pieces of clothes on his chest, revealing the black and gold clothes inside, glared at Jiang Bin, and then grinned. Jiang Bin suddenly felt that something was wrong, and waved his fat short hands. "Mr. Huang." "Misunderstanding. Mr. Huang." Chang Ning didn't listen to him continue to talk, and his figure approached like a ghost. twisted the fat man's neck, and then kicked him onto Zhu Hao's Heo's coffin, letting him accompany his grandfather. This fat man wants to kill me when he gets the chance. Chang Ning kicked him and was still angry. After calming down, he looked up and looked at the main tomb. This room is a bit bigger than the tombs outside. There are 2 huge stone coffins in the middle, one big and one small, against the back wall. Zhu Hao's Heo and his wife should be sleeping inside. There is a circle of stone storage tables around the coffins, on which are placed a glazed prayer wheel, a knife, a bow, a flintlock, a golden dog head statue, and an empty storage table. It is probably the bone box that Jiang Bin took out. Chang Ning was not interested in the things in the coffins of Zhu Hao's Heo and his wife. After a simple glance, he left the tomb and returned to the ground. At this time, the group of soldiers from the research institute had not left. Although their weapons were confiscated, they still stood there, waiting for Jiang Bin's order. Chang Ning walked over and said to them, "Go back and tell your chief Zhu that Dr. Jiang Bin had bad intentions at the old Zhu family's ancestral tomb and was left by me. Get out." Several team leaders among the soldiers looked at each other, nodded at Chang Ning, and then turned around and left quickly. Chang Ning turned around and walked to Zun Chen. "Uncle Zun, are you okay?" Zun Chen had already stopped bleeding. For a relic hunter, this kind of injury that did not hurt the bones was a minor injury. He smiled and shook his head at Chang Ning. "I'm fine, thank you, Xiao Chang." Chang Ning smiled and said, "Don't be polite, take a rest, and wait for the wound to heal initially, then we will set off again." Zun Chen nodded, "Thank you for your help." Alas. Chang Ning turned around and walked to another tree, took out the bone aircraft from the bag behind him, and took out the small bone box. There is a groove here. It seems that this box can be put in just right. Chapter 193, A Bad Unboxing Experience. Without hesitation, Chang Ning put the small box directly into the groove of the aircraft body. Click, it fits perfectly. These 2 things are really a complete set. As soon as the box was put in, the whole aircraft began to vibrate, as if the box was a switch that started the motor inside. After a while, the vibration stopped, and the aircraft returned to its original state. "This, just a vibration will do," Chang Ning complained in his heart. He thought the aircraft would fly directly. When he looked at it again, the aircraft was a little different. 2 small cracks appeared on the main part that was originally seamless. Chang Ning gently broke along the cracks and actually broke off the bone shell smoothly. So this small box is the key to open the box. After the shell was removed, the interior of the aircraft was exposed. Most of it is made of silver gray metal, which is probably why this thing is so heavy. The top layer of metal is very flat, with a metal disc polished like a mirror on the top and uneven wavy patterns on the bottom. Chang Ning stared at it for a while, and he felt that the layout was somewhat familiar, very much like the old-fashioned mobile phones of the late 20th century. The smooth top is the screen, and the bumpy bottom is the keyboard. Is this the control system of this thing? The wavy lines below look patchwork, and they really look like some kind of text. The problem is that Chang Ning doesn't recognize it at all, and he is sure that this is not any common text known on Earth. Chang Ning has seen a lot of square characters and alphabetic characters, but he has never seen wavy characters. He guessed that this thing is most likely the text of an alien civilization. After staring at it for a while, he couldn't help but reach out and poke the wavy protrusions a few times. The smooth metal mirror above really gradually brightened, and a round screen appeared. The screen was covered with tiny grids, like an old-fashioned pixel game, with wavy lines rolling from right to left. Chang Ning was confused. He continued to poke a few times, and new waves continued to appear on the screen with Chang Ning's movements, but there was no other movement on the entire aircraft. Chang Ning did not fight with this thing to death, but stretched out his hand to try to see if he could pry open the top metal plates to reveal the structure underneath. He put his hand on the edge of the metal plate and opened the metal plate without much force, just like turning a book. Then Chang Ning threw the aircraft 3 or 4 meters away, and it fell on the grass in the distance. Under the metal plate, there was a piece of squirming flesh and blood. It was hard to tell what kind of creature it was. It was like a heart beating inside the aircraft, and it looked very inconsistent with the aesthetics of humans on Earth. It was extremely disgusting. When Chang Ning thought about carrying such a thing for more than a day, his whole back felt a little uncomfortable. This piece of flesh and blood was obviously a living thing, but the position where it appeared was very strange. That bone thing, whether it was a large handmade or a real alien aircraft, should not have a living thing in it. This aircraft is similar to the Voyager, launched by the United States on Earth in the 20th century. It only carries detection instruments and does not carry living things. So did the blood and flesh inside get in accidentally? The Zheng mausoleum has been built for 1000 years. If it has been staying in there all this time, how long has it lived? Moreover, when Chang Ning took out the bone aircraft before, he didn't feel anything moving inside. It is estimated that it was activated after the aircraft and the box were combined into one. It had been dormant before. Chang Ning didn't know whether it was a blessing or a curse for this thing to be activated. At that time, Emperor Zheng had both the aircraft and the box, and brought them to the mausoleum together, but they were placed separately. The groove on the aircraft for loading the box was very obvious, and ZHU Xiao couldn't have missed it. Chang Ning assumed that he had also tried to combine the aircraft and the box into one, but eventually separated them again. There must be a reason for this. Thinking of this, Chang Ning injured the nausea, stepped forward to close the lid on the aircraft, and then took the box out of the groove. Listening carefully, there was still a fluttering sound inside. He thought for a moment, called Xiang Bao who had just returned from looking for water, and said seriously, "Xiang Bao, I have a task for you." Xiang Bao was startled. "What's the matter?" Chang Ning pointed to the bone aircraft on the ground. "This thing is very important. I don't feel comfortable leaving it to others. You can help me hold it. Carry it on your back, and don't leave it for a moment." Xiang Bao knew that this bone aircraft was taken out by Chang Ning from the Zheng mausoleum, and it was the biggest gain of this trip. Although I don't know what this thing is used for, seeing how much Chang Ning has taken it seriously in the past 2 days, it means that it must be very important. Just now when Chang Ning was disassembling the aircraft, Xiang Bao happened to find that they had finished drinking the drinking water they brought, and then ran to the creek mouth of the cave behind the laboratory mountain to get water, and did not see what it looked like after it was disassembled. Young Qian was watching from the side. When she heard Chang Ning fooling Xiang Bao, she stared at the aircraft on the ground with a disgusted face. Xiang Bao didn't notice young Qian's expression. Hearing Chang Ning handing such an important thing to himself, the weakest in the team, he was overjoyed. He walked over, packed the flying machine, put it on his back, and said to Chang Ning, "Don't worry, I will take good care of it." Chang Ning patted Xiang Bao's shoulder, and gave him an encouraging look. Then he turned to look at Shen and other surviving relic hunters. Chen and his friends were not seriously injured. They were all awakened, and their physical fitness was much better than that of ordinary people. They could move normally now, but they could not exert force. He looked at the bodies of the relic hunters who were slaughtered by the soldiers brought by Jiang Bin in the forest, and sighed, "I brought them all. Let them rest in peace." Although it was only a temporary team, it was convened by Chen after all. Now that people died here, Chen's conscience reminded him that he still had to be responsible. Chang Ning nodded. "There happens to be an excavated mausoleum over there. Let's drag all these bodies in and bury them." Chen had no objection. Several people together stuffed the dead relic hunters into ZHU Xiao's mausoleum along the cave dug by Chang Ning. I don't know how the ridiculous Emperor Zheng felt when he found that many new neighbors had come after he was buried for 1000 years. Soon, the bodies were dragged into the mausoleum, and Chen and Chang Ning blocked the stolen hole. Looking at the sky, it was almost noon. Chen said, "Did you kill Dr. Jiang? Can we go back to Yanjing City?" Chang Ning smiled and said, "We can go back. Why not? Doesn't Jiang Bin still owe you a reward? He is dead. We can go and get it ourselves." Chen opened his mouth, but did not refute. He followed Chang Ning and everyone walked towards Yanjing City together. Chapter 194 Return to Yanjing City. It was not yet dusk when they arrived at Yanjing City. With the help of Chang Ning and Xiang Bao, the injured relic hunters walked very fast. When they walked to the edge of the city wall, the soldiers on guard stood at attention and saluted Chang Ning. Chang Ning also smiled at him and recognized him as a soldier who had followed them to the Zishan bunker the day before. Yanjing City was no different from before they left. It seemed that they walked fast enough, and the team of soldiers under Jiang Bin should not have returned to the city yet. Chang Ning asked Zun Shen and the other relic hunters to go back to the interest first, and he took his 3 friends to Bao Fang Hu Tang. The guard standing guard at the door of Jiang Bin's laboratory did not stop Chang Ning when he saw him, but saluted and said, "Mr. Huang, Dr. Jiang is not in the laboratory. You can go in and wait for him for a while." Chang Ning smiled and nodded, and several people walked in swaggeringly. Walking to Jiang Bin's office and pushing the door in, Chang Ning found that someone had been sitting inside for a long time. It was Wang Yun. Wang Yun was flipping through an old book behind Jiang Bin's desk. When he saw Chang Ning come in, he stood up and said, "Mr. Huang, are you here to see Dr. Jiang too?" Chang Ning nodded. "Are you looking for him too?" Wang Yun frowned and said, "I'm not looking for him, the leader is looking for him. I've been waiting here for a long time, and I don't know where he went." Chang Ning closed the door. "He may not come back." "Not coming back? What do you mean?" "Drive Jiang took people to your leader's ancestral grave, wanting to dig up the grateful treasures. He also tried to sneak attack me, but I killed him." Chang Ning said calmly. Originally thought that Wang Yun would get angry or panic, but unexpectedly Wang Yun still maintained an unusually calm expression. He frowned and said, "Killed by you, Mr. Huang? That's fine." Chang Ning raised his eyebrows. "What? I killed the senior executives of your institute, and you didn't say anything?" Wang Yun shook his head. "To tell you the truth, Mr. Huang, this time I came to find Dr. Jiang. I also want to take him back to be punished. If you don't kill him, he will be shot if I take him back to the bunker." Chang Ning pulled a chair over and sat opposite Wang Yun. "Oh, what did he do wrong? Last time you asked the chief about Jinghe City, the chief thought you were hinting at something, so he sent people to investigate. It turned out that Jiang Bin privately kept humans in captivity and seized glandular nuclei. This is a capital crime in our institute. Didn't Jiang Bin say that you think human star cores and force cores are easier to transplant?" Chang Ning was a little surprised. Wang Yun shook his head. "It was a second generation of scientists in the institute who worked out the method of transplantation. When we first came to the surface, that predecessor discovered the law of transplantation and summed up a complete set of methods. But that predecessor also set a rule that all force cores and star cores must come from evil beasts and insane ghosts, and glands must not be obtained from any human for any reason, even if they are dead. This is a scientific ethics issue." Chang Ning smacked his lips. "That means it was Jiang Bin himself who got the glands from humans?" Wang Yun nodded. "Indeed. But there is an entire army of awakened members in your institute. You must know that, right? How did these troops awaken? Are they all created with the gland nuclei of insane ghosts and evil beasts? They must have obtained a large number of human gland nuclei to create an army of 500 people, right? Don't tell me you haven't thought about it. The entire army building process was done by Jiang Bin alone." Chang Ning retorted. Wang Yun didn't think much and said directly, "When the former chief brought the institute back to the ground for the second time, all the staff were indeed awakened, but at that time the army had only more than 100 people. Later, the army gradually expanded to 500 people, and there was no such thing as all the staff awakening." Chang Ning suddenly realized, "So your army is not fully awakened now?" Wang Yun said grimly, "But it will be soon. Originally, only the more than 100 soldiers guarding the bunker were awakened, and most of the troops in Yanjing City were ordinary people. But the chief and my father haven't managed the army in Yanjing City for more than 10 years, but now Jiang Bin has created nearly 200 awakened confidants here." Chang Ning thought to himself, "Good guy. If Jiang Bin is given a few more years, he can rebel and overthrow the existing leadership of the institute. Originally, I thought that the resistance army in the institute only had 2 funny people, a Ming and Wei Hong, but in fact, there was also a big boss, Jiang Bin." Chang Ning said to Wang Yun without comment, "Then your management loopholes are really many. You just said the chief and your father. Who is your father?" "Oh, you have met him. My father is the military chief of the bunker." Chang Ning nodded. "So he is a second generation official. However, the appearance of Wang Yun and Wang Daha is quite different. If he didn't say it himself, Chang Ning really wouldn't have thought of this. Wang Yun then asked, "Where is Jiang Bin's body? Although he is dead, we still have to see his body." Chang Ning frowned and said, "Do you know that there was an Emperor Zheng in the Ming dynasty?" Wang Yun was confused by Chang Ning's sudden question. "Huh? His body is in the tomb of Emperor Zheng?" Wang Yun asked puzzledly. "I know about the Ming dynasty. They are the ancestor of our leader. I don't know who Emperor Zheng is. Where is his tomb?" Chang Ning stared at Wang Yun for a while and felt that he was not lying, so he asked again, "Did Jiang Bin tell you that he was from the Ming dynasty?" Wang Yun was even more confused now. Wasn't that more than 1,000 years ago? Is there really such a thing as time travel in this world? Before the apocalyptic disaster, no one could awaken. Aren't there awakened people everywhere now? Chang Ning curled his lips and continued, "Then do you know if Jiang Bin has any place to hide things secretly?" Wang Yun shook his head. "I don't have much contact with him." "Okay, let's search his laboratory now to see if we can find any valuable clues. Then I'll go with you to the bunker to meet your leader and explain to him where Jiang Bin is. How about that?" Wang Yun thought for a moment and nodded. "Okay." Chang Ning didn't expect Wang Yun to be so easy to talk to, so he asked Yun Qian Qian, Xiang Bao and Yang Bao to search Jiang Bin's office. After searching through boxes and cabinets for a long time, there were only some official documents and forms in Yanjing City, and a few worn-out science and technology books. Chang Ning and his friends crossed the yard and came to Jiang Bin's laboratory. This laboratory was like the teaching laboratory in junior high school in Chang Ning's era, with some simple experimental equipment such as beakers, test tubes, and copper coils. He thought of Wang Yun's evaluation of Jiang Bin, and not only shook his head, but also had no expectations for Jiang Bin's academic level. In addition to these common things, no other valuable clues were found in the laboratory. If Jiang Bin really came from the Ming dynasty, he must have left some evidence, right? Did he deal with the Ming-style clothes in the waist badge used to enter the palace? Or was it really placed somewhere in the Zishan bunker? Just as Chang Ning was thinking, he heard voices coming from outside. He opened the door of the laboratory and found that Chief ZHU of the institute and Wang Yun's father Wang Daha had come to Jiang Bin's yard with a group of soldiers. Wang Yun was talking to Chief ZHU. Chief ZHU interrupted him loudly and said, "Impossible. Jiang Bin was raised by my father since he was a child. He didn't suddenly appear in Yanjing City." Chapter 195 Let's Rebel. Jiang Bin was raised by the former chief. Then he didn't travel through time from the Ming dynasty? That fat guy is lying to me again. Chang Ning was so angry that his teeth itched. Thinking carefully, it was true. Although Jiang Bin knew everything about the Ming dynasty, especially the events during the Zheng period, those events were not secrets. Even Chang Ning knew a rough idea. He could learn about that period of history through history books or even novels. He also said that he traveled through time holding the small bone box, and the place of travel was in the laboratory in the back mountain of Kangling. Chang Ning believed his statement when he found the cave on the wall of the laboratory in the back mountain. However, Jiang Bin's awakening ability, like Xiang Bao, connects 2 points in space and flashes instantly. Chang Ning thought of the Xiang Bao who accidentally flashed into the large warehouse on the 4th floor of Yangcheng. The guy was in the dark and almost went crazy. If Jiang Bin's ability is exactly the same as Xiang Bao's, then there should be a longer skill cooling period. After accidentally flashing into the laboratory, he can't get out during this cooling period. This explains why he chiseled a hole in the mountain wall behind the laboratory. If you think about it from another angle, Jiang Bin may be a person from this time and space, and he did not come from the Ming dynasty at all. The only doubt is how he knew about the bone aircraft and the small box in the Zheng mausoleum. This may also be known through ancient books. It is not surprising that a senior official who ruled the area around Yanjing got such an ancient book that recorded secrets. However, if he really came from the Ming dynasty, did Chief ZHU have some secret things and deliberately confuse the public? Chang Ning thought about it carefully and found that Jiang Bin could be born in the current era or in the Ming dynasty. All the clues and evidence are open. It's a pity that this person has been killed by himself and there is no way to confront Chief ZHU. He walked out of Jiang Bin's laboratory with Xiang Bao, Yang Bao and Yun Qian Qian. When Chief ZHU saw Chang Ning, he stopped roaring at Wang Yun, turned around and smiled, and said to Chang Ning gently, "I heard that Mr. Huang has eliminated a threat to our Yanjing city. I want to thank you on behalf of the institute." Chang Ning said, "He was attacking me and threatened my safety. I had to kill him on the spot." Chief ZHU nodded. "That guy is a liar. He flattered my father and became a senior official in Yanjing City. Later, he kept humans in captivity outside without telling us. He has been doing this for so long, and other forces around Yanjing City know about it. The senior officials of our institute didn't know anything. It's really hateful." Chang Ning shook his head and said, "Then you are really slow to realize it." A trace of shame appeared on Chief ZHU's face. "Jiang Bin's forces have been eliminated by me, and the surrounding captive cities have also been lifted. I will send people to deliver some supplies and survival techniques to them, so that they can develop well in the days to come. I hope to make up for the mistakes Jiang Bin made." Chang Ning smiled and said, "That's great. It's a great virtue to know one's mistakes and correct them." Master ZHU bowed to Chang Ning and said, "Thank you Master Huang for your understanding. However, although Jiang Bin is dead, we still want to see his body. May I ask Master Huang, where exactly was Jiang Bin executed?" Chang Ning said, "It's in Kangling." Seeing that Chief ZHU was still frowning and looking confused, he described the specific location of Kangling and the surrounding surface features. Chief ZHU nodded, turned around and whispered something to Wang Dahua, and then said goodbye to Chang Ning. Wang Dahua, Wang Yun and the bunker guards they brought with them all left. Chang Ning and his friends also walked out of the Bao Fang Hutong and found that the people who had been guarding the door of Jiang Bin's laboratory and even the gate of Yanjing City had all been replaced. The soldiers who had followed Jiang Bin and taken Chang Ning to the bunker were all gone. It seemed that they had been cleared out by Chief ZHU and his friends. However, the entire Yanjing City was not affected by this cleansing. The shops along the main street were still open, although there were still few customers, which was similar to the scene when Chang Ning first entered the city. After Chang Ning and his friends strolled around the street, they entered the inn again. "Brothers ironing, I want to eat noodles." As soon as they arrived at the inn, Yun Qian Qian pulled Chang Ning's clothes and said. Chang Ning curled his lips and took out a handful of coins commonly used in Yanjing City and handed them to Yun Qian Qian. This was found on the dead relic hunters when they were buried. Yun Qian Qian went there happily, and Yang Bao also licked his lips and followed Yun Qian Qian to the noodle shop. Chang Ning and Xiang Bao went to Zhen Chen's room to visit him. Zhen Chen, a relic hunter, has much more experience than Xiang Bao, and there are some highly effective trauma medicines in his gift. After applying the medicine and resting for half a day, he has recovered for the most part. "Uncle Zhen, what are your plans for the future? Are you going back to Yao Town?" Chang Ning asked, while sitting on the bedside of Zhen Chen. "Go back to Yao Zhen?" Zhen Chen showed a slightly dazed look on his face. It was obvious that he had been away from his hometown for too long. When he mentioned going home, he always felt unreal. He moved his mouth and said for a long time, "I'd better go to the two places you mentioned last time to look for them first, in case I can find Xiaolu's mother." Chang Ning advised, "Those two places are in the south, and the route from Yanjing City passes through Yaosan. Uncle Zhen misses you very much, and I believe Zhenlu also wants to see you. Why don't you go back first, see your family before setting off?" Zhen Chen lowered his head and was silent for a while, and finally said, "Okay." Chang Ning chatted with Zhen Chen about Yaosan for a while, before getting up and saying goodbye. At this time, most of the relic hunters who originally lived in the inn had not returned, and many rooms were empty. The waiter of the inn was very enthusiastic to ask Chang Ning and his friends to change to a larger room to stay, and Chang Ning followed suit. A team of 4 people each occupied a room. Anyway, Wang Yun told the waiter that they were distinguished guests, and it was free to stay in the hotel. After returning to the room, Chang Ning continued to think about Jiang Bin. Did this guy travel from the Ming dynasty? What exactly is the bone object he is looking for? What is its function? What is the blood and flesh inside? What is the reason why Emperor Zheng of the Ming dynasty took this thing as a burial object? All kinds of messy information gathered in Chang Ning's mind, but there were not many truly reliable clues. Just as his mind was in a mess, Chang Ning heard someone knocking on his room door. Who? Chang Ning asked vigilantly. If Xiang Bao, Yang Bao or Yun Qian Qian, they should talk to him, while knocking on the door. The person outside was obviously not his own. It's me, Mr. Huang, a voice outside said in a low voice. Chang Ning immediately recognized that this was the resistance leader among they met before entering Yanjing City. He went over to open the door and let the other party in. Mr. Huang, good opportunity. More than half of the soldiers in the bunker have been withdrawn. If you are willing to help, our resistance army can start an uprising today. Ming said without thinking, as soon as he came in. Chang Ning looked at Ming with a gloomy face. You two are rebelling? Ming looked expectant. Aren't you still here? Chang Ning pouted. It's none of our business. Then he quickly changed his expression. Wait, you said most of the soldiers in the bunker have been withdrawn? Chapter 196 Yun Yu's whereabouts. Ming nodded. Yes. There are at most 20 to 30 people in there, as well as some factory workers. It's the perfect time to rebel. Chang Ning looked at Ming with an idiot look. The so-called resistance army in Yanjing City only had 2 people. Even if most of their troops were withdrawn, they still had far more people than them. They actually wanted to rebel. However, why were so many troops in the bunker transferred away? But there were less than 20 people at most. There were more than 200 soldiers in the bunker in Zishan. So where did the remaining more than 100 people go? Chang Ning could think of only one place, in Yanjing City, where troops might be deployed, and that was Kangling of ZHU House Xiao. Just now, Chief ZHU asked Chang Ning about the direction of Kangling, and left in a hurry, saying that he was going to see Jiang Bin's body. But why did so many soldiers need to go out to find a body? This was obviously very abnormal. Chang Ning followed this clue and quickly sorted out the matter between Jiang Bin and Chief ZHU in his mind. According to Jiang Bin, he came from the Ming dynasty, appeared in a laboratory halfway up the mountain behind Kangling, and escaped from the cave by chiseling the back wall. After coming out, he walked along the river to Yanjing City. Kangling was on the other side of the mountain at the exit of the cave. He did not pass by or notice it, so he never knew the specific location of Kangling. When he was in the Ming dynasty, he knew that ZHU House Xiao had a treasure, a bone figure, and suspected that ZHU House Xiao had taken it to be buried with him. So he launched a relic hunter to find Kangling, and finally ran into Chang Ning and was killed. This series of narratives does not seem to have any loopholes, but think about it carefully. If Fatty Jiang Bin was the godson of the flatterer Jiang Bin in the Ming dynasty, how could he not know the location of the Ming dynasty emperor's ancestral tomb? During the Zheng dynasty, 6 Ming tombs had been built, and large-scale sacrifices were held every year. Who among the civil and military officials, or even the people of the capital, would not know the location of the royal mausoleum? Since we know the approximate location of the royal mausoleum, if we want to find Kangling, we need to search a very small area. We don't need to hire so many relic hunters to search aimlessly in the Yanshan mountains. So, did Jiang Bin lie to me? According to Chief ZHU, Jiang Bin was raised by the previous chief since he was a child, and there is no such thing as crossing from the Ming dynasty halfway. But why did he attach so much importance to Jiang Bin's body? Not only did he search in person, but he also took more than 100 fully armed soldiers with him. What's outrageous is that Chief ZHU's surname is also ZHU, and he is a descendant of the Emperor of the Ming dynasty. Since he is a descendant of the Emperor of the Ming dynasty, he must know where his ancestral tomb is, and have a certain understanding of the history of the Ming dynasty. I have told him before that Jiang Bin was shot dead by me when he tried to dig their ancestral tomb. But Chief ZHU was obviously confused about the location of his ancestral tomb, and Chang Ning needed to describe it carefully to find the location. This is outrageous. Chang Ning now feels that both the dead Jiang Bin and the living Chief ZHU are untrustworthy, and there must be some key information that he doesn't know. He paced a few steps and said to Ming, who was still standing stupidly in the room, "How are you going to start an uprising? How are you going to rebel?" Ming was stunned. Take advantage of their small numbers and occupy the bunker. Then what? Then just guard the bunker. They can't get in anyway. Can the two of you guarding the bunker fight against more than 100 troops? Almost, but it's safer with you. Chang Ning suddenly felt that this person might really have some problems with his brain. He emphasized, the two of you, can you fight against more than 100 troops full of awakened people? Even if they don't rely on firepower coverage, they can crush you to death with their awakening abilities alone, right? Ming blinked. There is a radiation field in the bunker. It's useless for ordinary awakened people to go in. Even if a very advanced awakened person goes in, his strength will be weakened by more than half. And the bunker's defense is so strong, with that big iron door, that thick iron wall. Chang Ning interrupted him and said, radiation field? What is that? Ming said, didn't I tell you before? That is the biggest trump card of the institute, the ultimate defensive weapon, that can weaken the awakened. There is such a thing. Chang Ning said in surprise. Otherwise, how do you think the institute returned to the bunker and closed the exit when it first came to the ground, facing the masters everywhere and the extraordinary surface Yanjing city? Ming looked innocent. Chang Ning continued to pace back and forth. The water in this institute is deeper than imagined. The radiation field that can weaken the awakened must have been developed after the Doomsday disaster, right? In other words, after the Doomsday, the institute still maintains a relatively strong research and development force. At least Chang Ning does not have this kind of scientific research force now, and everyone he knows does not have this technology. In the current Doomsday wasteland, having a steampunk is considered high-tech. Chang Ning's development plan for Yancheng is to reach the production and living standards of the 20th century within 5 years. This made Chang Ning feel that aiming was a little inexplicable. When the institute was so powerful, the two of them dared to rebel. Is there something wrong with their brains? Just when he wanted to find out more information, footsteps were heard outside the door. Ming went over and opened the door. It was Wei Hang, the deputy leader of the rebels, who came in. All the rebels were present. Wei Hang had a poker face, as if everyone owed him something. After he came in, he stood still, looked at Ming, and then looked at Chang Ning. Ming grabbed Wei Hang's hand and asked anxiously, what's going on? Wei Hang nodded. They have all been sent in and are lurking. When we take action, they will cooperate with us inside. Chang Ning looked puzzled. Are there any other people who will rebel with you? Ming smiled and said, isn't Wei Hang a master of animal taming? Today, he urgently summoned hundreds of poisonous snakes and thousands of bats, and they have all sneaked into the bunker. The light inside is very dim, and it is difficult to find them if you don't pay attention. Chang Ning nodded. No wonder the two of them dared to take action. It turned out that there were many animal armies helping them. But even so, their rebellion plan seemed extremely naive. Moreover, they blatantly invited me to participate. Aren't they afraid that I would sell them out? At this time, Wei Hang, who had a poker face, spoke again. When I was setting up just now, I found a master level awakener returning to the bunker. Ming finally showed a look of fear and hesitation. Who? Wei Hang shook his head. I don't know him, but he also caught a lost heart ghost in his hand. It is more than 3 meters tall. It should also be a master level lost heart ghost. This person is very powerful and can capture lost heart ghosts of the same level alive. Huh. A master level lost heart ghost with a height of more than 3 meters? Could it be Li Ling? Yan Yi captured Li Ling in Yancheng, and now he finally brought Li Ling to Yanjing City? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 197 Attack on the Bunker. The two leaders of the Yanjing City rebels gathered in Chang Ning's room, intending to persuade Chang Ning to join the rebellion. But there are only 2 people in this rebel army, and Chang Ning's brain is not broken, so he doesn't want to pay attention to them at all. However, the news brought by the deputy leader Wei Hang attracted Chang Ning's attention. In addition to looking for clues about X substance, his biggest purpose in coming to Yanjing City is to find the whereabouts of Yan Yi and Li Ling. Yan Yi is the old city lord of Yancheng, who disappeared mysteriously in the Black Moon last year. With the relationship between Chang Ning and Yan Yi's daughter Yan Xiansu, it is inevitable to help her find her father and find out the truth about his departure. Li Ling is an extremely powerful old insane ghost who has been active near Yancheng for 300 years. He helped the people of Yancheng repel the attacks of the insane ghost army, and also had some inexplicable friendship with Chang Ning. It is reasonable for Chang Ning to find these two people and find out the truth. So he pondered for a moment, and said to Ming and Wei Hang, I can go with you, and go to the West Mountain bunker to check the situation first. However, I can't guarantee that I will go with you. Just take a look at the situation first. How about it? Ming was overjoyed. It's good that Mr. Huang can go. As long as you stand there, the success rate of our rebellion will rise sharply. Chang Ning pouted, went to the next room, to call Yan Qian and Yang Bao who had finished their noodles, and reunited with Xiang Bao, and briefly explained the matter. Have you found my father's whereabouts? Yang Qian blinked her big eyes, and stared at Chang Ning. Chang Ning touched her head. It's just suspected that it's the old city lord, and I have to go over to confirm it. Yang Qian jumped up. What are you waiting for? Let's go. The four of them, together with the two leaders of the rebels, walked out of the inn and came to the outside of Yanjing city. When passing by the sentry on duty, Chang Ning found that the sentry's face changed when he saw them. After walking a distance and making sure that the sentry couldn't hear them, Amin said anxiously, have our resistance forces been discovered? Those soldiers looked at us in a strange way. Wei Hang scratched his head. When I entered the city just now, they didn't even look at me. Chang Ning stared at the city gate for a while. They are probably following the four of us. Amin was shocked. Have you done anything wrong too? Chang Ning shook his head. It seems that Chief Zhu of the institute seems to be a little wary of me. While several people were talking, they heard the sound of horse hooves in the distance, and a sentry rode around the wall on the west side of the city and headed north. Chang Ning turned around and said to several people, everyone squeeze in. Then he took the lead and got into the armored vehicle parked not far from the city gate. Xiang Bao quickly grabbed a co-pilot seat, and Yang Bao and Yan Qian pouted and sat in the back. There was one seat in the back, but Amin and Wei Hang had two people. The two of them looked at each other and were about to get into the car together. Yang Qian, who was sitting in the middle of the back seat, pouted and said, only one person can get in. Wei Hang was a relatively strong man. As soon as Yan Qian finished speaking, before Ming made a move, he rushed into the car and took the last seat. Ming said angrily, I'm a whirlwind, I don't need to ride in a car. Chang Ning saw that the car doors were closed, so he immediately started the car and chased in the direction of the sentry. Ming followed behind the car easily, but from time to time he glanced at the people in the car, his eyes revealing helplessness and resentment. Chang Ning increased the vehicle's maximum speed, which was actually only 60 to 70 km per hour. The maximum speed of an armored vehicle is not fast, and the terrain nearby is not very flat. This speed is definitely faster than a galloping horse, and the vehicle will not get tired or slow down, and the cavalry's horses cannot run at full speed all the time. But the strange thing is that, after chasing for 6 or 7 kilometers, he still didn't see the sentry just now. After driving forward for about 2 kilometers, a forest appeared in front of them. When the armored vehicles could not enter, they found the cavalry's horse. But there was only a horse without a person. Chang Ning said in annoyance, it's bad, the messenger must be a gust of wind. His way of thinking was still in the 21st century. When he saw someone riding a horse, he assumed that he could catch up by driving. But the cavalry who reported the news only rode a horse to help him walk for a while. When he reached the complex terrain, he exerted his awakening ability and hurried on his own, faster than riding a horse. Xiang Bao curled his lips. So you want to chase him? You should have told me earlier that I would get off the car to chase him for you. Can we still catch up now? Chang Ning had a glimmer of hope. Xiang Bao shook his head. Chase for nothing. We don't even know where he walked from. Are we going to chase him blindly? Chang Ning sighed. Forget it. Let him report the news. We will go to the bunker first. So he turned around and drove to the dirt road leading to Zishan from Yanjing City. Ming, who was walking, saw Chang Ning stop the car and turn around. He didn't understand what this operation was, but he turned around and followed. 10 minutes later, the West Mountain was already in sight. Chang Ning stopped the car in advance, hid in the dense forest on the side of the road, and led everyone out of the car to walk. It was just getting dark, and several people came to the entrance of the bunker in the dark. Chang Ning could see that the crashed plane on the hillside behind the entrance was gone, and it was unknown where it was dragged by the people from the institute. Approaching the entrance, it can be clearly seen that there are only 2 sentinels at the gate, standing straight, and there is nothing unusual nearby. It seems that the messenger really went to the direction of Kangling, and the bunker didn't know we were coming. Chang Ning muttered in his heart. I don't know why Chief ZHU monitors my whereabouts. Will he come back immediately when he sees me leaving the city? In this case, how can those 2 funny guys rebel? Thinking of this, he turned his head and looked at Aiming and Wei Hang. The 2 were very excited, staring at the gate of the bunker, and looked eager to try. Can your legion kill these 2 guards? Aiming asked Wei Hang. Wei Hang shook his head. Those who can be assigned as sentinels must have awakened abilities related to exploration. If they are ordinary people, of course they can, but facing them, they will probably be discovered in advance. Then we can only kill them by force. Aiming looked a little guilty. Wei Hang said, we can create some chaos first. After speaking, he put his hand to his mouth and blew a few times, and he actually made a sound of an unknown bird, which was crisp and melodious and spread far away in the forest. Soon, with the sound of flapping, nearly 100 birds of various colors gathered, including sparrows, magpies, owls, all common small birds. The bushes in the distance also shook, and a yellow figure emerged. It's Ah Huang. Young Kai Qian's eyes lit up, and she ran over and hugged the lion Ah Huang's head. Ah Huang had just come out, and before he could see the situation clearly, he was hugged by young Kai Qian. He was so scared that he stood there and dared not move. Hey, let Ah Huang go. Wei Hang saw Ah Huang being held hostage and was a little anxious. Young Kai Qian looked at Ah Huang and thought that the important thing was to break into the institute and find his father's whereabouts first, so she rubbed Ah Huang's head for a while and walked away. Ah Huang felt relieved and ran to Wei Hang and lay down, licking Wei Hang's hand affectionately. Wei Hang comforted Ah Huang and said to Aiming, are you ready? Aiming had taken off the automatic rifle on his back and half crouched in a shooting posture. Okay, let's start. As he finished speaking, hundreds of birds fluttered out of the forest where they were hiding, attracting the attention of the 2 sentinels. The birds did not fly far, but flew straight to the entrance of the bunker. The 2 sentinels had never seen such a situation before, and they were stunned until the birds flew closer and began to attack them. Then they raised their gun butts and each tried to fend off the birds that pounced on them. These birds had no attack power, and although they made the 2 sentinels quite embarrassed, they were not seriously injured. Just as they were in a panic, Ah Huang in the forest roared and pounced out. The 2 sentinels immediately felt as if they were facing a formidable enemy. Birds can't kill people, but lions can bite people to death. So they both pointed their guns at Ah Huang, ready to attack, but they were constantly disturbed by the birds. Their vision was blocked, and they couldn't aim for a while. At this time, the gun in Aiming's hand fired. Dada. 2 bullets were fired in a burst, and blood burst out from the head of a sentry, and he fell to the ground motionless. The other sentry was terrified and ran into the gate while taking out the walkie-talkie. Just as he made a move, Aiming's gun fired again. Dada. The sentry was almost running to the gate, and as the gunshots rang out, he also fell down, holding his neck. Chang Ning took a deep look at Aiming. This kid's shooting skills are not bad, even catching up with his little maid Supanpan. Aiming blew the muzzle of the gun in a cocky way, and said to Chang Ning and Wei Hang, done. Let's go. Wei Hang got out of the woods, and walked towards the entrance of the bunker first. Da da da. As soon as he emerged, another round of gunfire rang out from the bunker. There was a fire just above the bunker gate. There was actually a gun stack there, which was usually closed, and even the 2 rebels had never noticed it. It was estimated that the soldiers on duty inside heard the movement outside, opened the firing port, and immediately opened fire when they saw Wei Hang coming out of the woods. As soon as the gunshots rang out, Ming jumped up and rushed to Wei Hang like a phantom, picked him up, and ran back to the woods. Da 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 da. Countless bullets poured into the place where Wei Hang had just stood. Xiang Bao looked at Ming's figure and said in amazement, "Master level?" He himself was a high-level Hurricane Awakener, and he thought he was an order of magnitude behind Ming in speed and reaction ability. Damn. There is an ambush. Wei Hang, who was rescued by Ming, cursed as soon as his feet landed. "Can you command your little snakes to go in and deal with them?" Ming put Wei Hang down and asked directly without hesitation. Wei Hang closed his eyes and made a strange humming sound, like a low hum. After a while, he shook his head. "This firing port is a closed room, the door is closed, there is not even a ventilation duct, and the snake can't get in." Ming turned his head and grinned at Chang Ning. "Mr. Huang, help me." Chang Ning curled his lips. He had just wanted to walk into the bunker openly and find out the whereabouts of Yun Yi. After all, his public identity at this time was still a VIP of the Yanjing City Research Institute. But who knew that Ming and Wei Hang started to fight so far away from the gate, and he had no reason to stop them. So the current situation is that the bunker of the institute has entered a wartime state as a whole, and it is difficult for him to get in. After thinking for a while, Chang Ning finally nodded. Although he created the Mr. Huang persona at the beginning and had a hot relationship with the senior executives of the institute, but from a standpoint, the two sides are enemies rather than friends after all. In addition to resisting the Heaven organization, Chang Ning could not think of any other possibility of cooperating with the institute. Chang Ning had a bad impression of the institute's behavior of keeping people from other cities in captivity. Chief Zhu was a confused person, and he felt that he had no good intentions. So Chang Ning decided not to pretend and just fight. He turned his head and glanced at Yun Qian. "Let's go side by side." Yun Qian nodded, and before Chang Ning could move, she rushed out first. Unsurprisingly, Yun Qian's figure just appeared outside the woods, and she was hit by a violent beating from the shooting position of the bunker opposite. But Yun Qian's speed was different from Wei Hang's. She didn't play any tricks and ran straight to the bunker gate. The bullets fired from the bunker could only follow her butt, leaving a bullet hole. In the blink of an eye, Yun Qian rushed into the bunker gate. Chang Ning didn't waste any words and rushed directly behind Yun Qian, also leaving a row of bullet holes, and no bullets hit him. Ming opened his mouth wide and was stunned for a long time. So Mr. Huang is so fierce. In fact, if it were him, he could also run into the bunker in a flash. With his speed, he is basically immune to small thermal weapons. As long as it is not a rocket, he can basically dodge it. But he is just a gust of wind, and his actual combat power is average. Moreover, in the narrow bunker, his speed is completely limited. So although he doesn't look very smart, he is not stupid enough to rush in with the others. Chang Ning followed Yun Qian to the door of the bunker. This is the blind spot of the upper shooting port. As soon as the two of them got under the door, the upper fire was turned off. But there was a team of about 20 to 30 soldiers inside the door who had just assembled and were about to rush out. Seeing Chang Ning and Yun Qian, the soldiers inside the door also raised their guns and fired. Chang Ning and Yun Qian dodged behind the stone walls on both sides of the gate, and the shooting inside the gate gradually stopped. Although both of them are master level Shineman fighters, they are not invulnerable. In the narrow cave, there is no way to completely dodge the dense bullets. If he was shot in the body, it would be okay. With the protection of the black and gold clothes, he would suffer minor internal injuries at most. But if he was hit in the head, he would most likely be seriously injured or even die. "Come out." Yun Qian hid for a while, and when she saw no one coming out, she stood behind the door and shouted. The soldiers inside were not stupid either. It was obvious that there were two masters outside. They could still rely on firepower to suppress them in the cave. Going out would be a complete suicide. Chang Ning was also impatient, so he pulled out his pistol and poked his head inside to shoot. As soon as he showed his head, he attracted another burst of dense gunfire, and there was no way to aim. Just when the two were in a dilemma, Yang Bao's shout came from the forest. "Do you need my help?" Yun Qian shouted back, "Hurry up. The people inside are very cowardly and refuse to come out." Not long after she shouted, she saw a lightning bolt more than 1 meter thick emerge from the forest, heading straight for the bunker gate, and entered the gate in an instant. Chapter 198 Bunker Control Center. Of course, the actual arc width of this lightning would not exceed 2 centimeters, but under the bright light of the arc, it looked very thick and fierce. Just like an old-fashioned incandescent light bulb, the filament is only a very thin line, but from a distance, it looks like half of the bulb is glowing. In any case, this lightning does look very scary, and it drilled into the door of the bunker at a very fast speed. Ming and Wei Han both opened their mouths wide, looking at Yang Bao, who raised her hand to release the lightning, thinking in their hearts whether they had accidentally offended this woman. The moment the arc entered the bunker door, a uniform scream rang out inside, as if it had been rehearsed, and more than 20 soldiers sang in a chorus. Then the chorus became chaotic, and only 4 or 5 voices continued to shout in a disorderly manner in the tunnel. Chang Ning stretched his head to look inside, and all the soldiers fell to the ground. Most of them were charred, and some were still twitching nervously. Only a few people could control their bodies, but they kept rolling and howling, unable to stand up, let alone pick up weapons to attack. He turned around and made an OK gesture to Yang Bao, and then called Yun Kai and Qian to enter the tunnel together. The two first bent the soldiers' guns with their hands and destroyed them, and then ignored these guys lying on the ground who had lost their combat effectiveness, and looked for the entrance to the upper gun stack on the 4 walls of the tunnel. After searching for dozens of meters, they finally found an inconspicuous small door behind a huge ventilation fan hole. Opening the door, a narrow upward staircase appeared in front of them. Going up the stairs, and passing through a corridor, they found a small bunker-like gun stack. There were only 3 people in total, and Chang Ning and Yun Kai and Qian came from behind them again. The battle was not suspenseful at all. After a few seconds, the 3 fell to the ground and fainted. Chang Ning and Yun Kai and Qian walked back to the gate of the bunker, and waved to Yang Bao, Xiang Bao, Ming and Wei Han to come over. Mr. Huang, you are so awesome. Ming felt that the most correct decision he made was to call Chang Ning to rebel. It was supposed to be a fierce battle at the door, but Chang Ning and his friends easily solved all the enemies. Chang Ning sighed and felt that he had gotten on a pirate ship. Where are we going now? Ming turned around and led the way. We go to the bunker control center. Only by occupying it can we control the bunker. Chang Ning shrugged and followed, aiming with an indifferent expression. Yun Kai and Qian walked at the end and hugged Da Huang. Seeing that Da Huang did not follow in, she left reluctantly. Perhaps Yang Bao's attack just now wiped out all the guards at the door of the bunker. They walked a few hundred meters inside and did not meet anyone. Soon, everyone came to the central hall of the bunker. This hall was very large, and there were countless forks on the edge walls, leading to different functional areas of the bunker. Have you contacted them? Ming turned around and asked Wei Han. Wei Han closed his eyes and made strange syllables in his mouth. After a while, he frowned and said, is it impossible to contact them? Have they opened the radiation field? Is that so? Ming suddenly accelerated and ran out, much faster than the Olympic sprint champion in the 21st century. But he quickly turned back and frowned, saying, it's true. My speed has been restricted a lot. When they said that, Chang Ning and the others also felt something was wrong. This abnormality was subtle. Chang Ning didn't even realize it just now. Now that he deliberately felt it, he felt that he seemed to have become a little weaker. This kind of weakness is very natural, just like people will naturally feel sleepy after eating. It makes people feel that it is a normal physiological reaction of their body and subconsciously ignore it. This is quite amazing. No matter how powerful the awakened person is, once they enter the bunker, the radiation field will limit their awakening ability. If they don't have the awakening ability, the invaders can only fight the bunker guards with hand-to-hand combat or firearms. But no matter how strong the invaders' firepower is, can it be as strong as the one in the bunker? Chang Ning thought of the arsenal that Wang Yun took him to see. There were tens of thousands of guns thrown there, and even some small rocket launchers. Be careful next time, and pay attention to your physical condition at any time. Chang Ning slowed down, and said to Ming and Wei Han, who were leading the way. Ming nodded. The control center is not far ahead. We are almost there. As he said that, he walked into a branch tunnel. This tunnel looked no different from the tunnels of the arsenal and weapons warehouse that Chang Ning had visited before, but now there was no guard post every 10 meters. I don't know if they were taken to Kangling by Chief ZHU, or if they were shrinking their defense and waiting for them in front. Finally, they walked to the end of the tunnel, and a huge iron door stood there. It was the strongest kind of civil defense door before the end of the world. The door was locked from the inside, and it was impossible to open it from the outside. Mr. Huang, Ming smiled at Chang Ning again. Help me. Chang Ning shook his head, took out his Skywalker #1 laser sword, pressed the blade, and cut on the big iron door in front of him. This door was not as thick as the iron door of the laboratory in the back mountain of Kangling. Chang Ning just cut out the shape of a door, and then gently pushed it. A large piece of iron plate on the iron door fell to the ground, opening a small door. Da-da-da. As soon as the small door was pushed open, gunshots were heard from inside. Several people dodged and hid behind the big iron door. The thickness of the big iron door was so thick that ordinary bullets could not penetrate it. After everyone hid, the gunshots inside became less, but they still did not stop, as if the guards inside had unlimited ammunition and kept firing at a certain frequency. What's going on? Chang Ning looked at Amin again. The deeper they went, the greater the impact of the radiation field. Now he vaguely felt that his Xianmen physical strength should have decreased by more than 90%, leaving less than 10% of his strength. He could not feel the power of the Stargate for the time being, perhaps because he could not use his ability. In the originally narrow tunnel, the remaining Xianmen power could hardly compete with the dense bullets. If there was a grenade or something like that, it could be thrown in. It would definitely be amazing in this terrain. But Chang Ning only had a pre-apocalypse police revolver in addition to the Skywalker #1 laser sword. Others did not have any heavy firepower weapons, only a few assault rifles. So several people stared at each other and had no way to deal with the infinite bullet-like shooting inside. Ming was also embarrassed. He scratched his forehead. Wait for them to stop shooting? How long will it take? Young Kai and Kian retorted. Wei Hang spoke at this time. Shh, be quiet, I can feel that some friends are nearby. Like everyone else, his awakening ability was severely weakened. Wei Hang's awakening ability is the Beast Tamer, which can control the ordinary beasts around. If he said that he could feel and control thousands of ordinary beasts around 1 kilometer before, then now his control range is less than 100 meters, and he can control dozens at most. Moreover, there are many obstacles in the bunker, and the terrain is not conducive to his performance. He may actually only be able to control about 20 to 30 meters. Before entering the bunker, Wei Hang sent some snakes and bats in, and ordered them to find a random location in the bunker to lurk. Unexpectedly, a group of venomous snakes happened to be lurking nearby. After his ability was weakened, Wei Hang was just able to contact and control them. Wei Hang's ability was limited, and the gunshots in the door kept disturbing him. He closed his eyes and tried to feel for a long time, and finally the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. It's done. He opened his eyes. What's done? Xiang Bao asked. There are dozens of poisonous snakes in there, and I have ordered them to attack the humans inside. Wei Hang explained. Sure enough, not long after, screams came from inside. Ah. There are snakes. There are also here. I was bitten. Although there are no highly venomous snakes around Yanjing City, Wei Hang is looking for some snakes that are more or less venomous this time. The dim light in the bunker tunnel is very conducive to the sudden attack of snakes. Dozens of poisonous snakes attacked at the same time, and almost all the humans who fired in the room inside were hit. Feeling the numbness of the place where they were bitten, they began to panic. Now, Chang Ning quickly dodged and entered the small door cutout. Young Kai and Kian, Xiang Bao, and Ming followed in. There were a dozen soldiers in the room, all in a panic. When they saw Chang Ning and the others coming in, they wanted to raise their guns and shoot, but they were too late. Bang, bang, bang. Chang Ning, Xiang Bao and Ming had already taken out their guns and opened fire as soon as they entered the room, completely suppressing the soldiers on the opposite side. Several soldiers hid behind the bunker and tried to fight back, but were beaten up by Yun Kai and Kian, who caught up with them. Although Yun Kai and Qian's abilities were now limited, she was still like a human-shaped female beast, rushing around and invincible. In less than 10 seconds, the battle in the room was over. Ming and Wei Han cleaned up the battlefield and finished off all the soldiers who were still alive. Here, even Chang Ning and Yun Kai and Qian couldn't destroy the soldiers' weapons with their bare hands. When he calmed down completely, Chang Ning began to look around the room. This was a room of about 100 square meters, dimly lit, with a whole row of consoles in the room, and a row of more than 10 monitors above the consoles. It looked very similar to the security room and the upper structure of Yunsheng, but more advanced. The various instruments on the console looked more like the devices in the shelter in the Doomsday game that Chang Ning played in the 21st century. Is this the control room? Yang Bao had never been to such a place and was curious about everything. Amin nodded, walked quickly to the side of the console, grabbed a handle with a flashing red light, and pulled it down. Chang Ning suddenly felt relaxed, as if the restricted power was slowly returning. Is that damn radiation field closed? Yun Kai and Qian obviously felt the pressure relieved, and asked with a smile at Amin. Amin turned around and smiled. It's closed. Then he continued to operate something on the workbench. Chang Ning saw Amin's skilled look, but frowned. You are a peripheral staff of the research institute. Logically, you haven't even entered the bunker a few times, right? How come you are so familiar with this control center? Amin didn't look back and continued to be busy with his hands, saying, after all, I'm the leader of the resistance army, and I must have a deep understanding of the research institute. Before he finished speaking, a small door at the other end of the room opened automatically with Amin's operation. Wei Han was just wandering around the room and just happened to come to this door. As soon as the small door opened a crack, he squeezed in sideways. Everyone felt their vision blurred again, and Ming's figure also floated into the door like the wind, and then with a bang, the door closed. What's going on? Xiao Bao was a little overwhelmed. As the small door closed, Chang Ning felt the pressure just now coming back, and the radiation field seemed to be turned on again. Ah! Snakes! Yang Bao screamed. Chang Ning looked up and saw dozens of snakes of various colors surrounding the four of them, preparing to attack. Hey, Wei Han, don't let your snakes bite us. Although Yun Kai and Qian was fearless, she had a natural resistance to this kind of cold-blooded reptile. Chang Ning quickly took out the laser sword. Kill all these snakes. Then he waved it forward. His ability was greatly restricted, but he was still at ease when facing ordinary snakes. Yang Bao also continuously emitted small flames from his hands, attacking the snakes on the ground around him. After a while, the whole room was filled with the aroma of meat, and the snakes that besieged the four people were completely eliminated. Chang Ning quickly came to the place where Aiming had just stood and imitated him to pull up the flashing red wrench on the control console, but the pressure of the radiation field remained unchanged. Damn, we've been fooled. At this time, the slow-reacting Xiang Bao finally understood that Aiming and Wei Han had just wanted to use them to come to this control center. Now that they were at the control center, they quickly left the four people behind and didn't know where they went. Chang Ning was very angry. He thought Aiming and Wei Han had a problem with their brains, but they were fooled by these two people who they thought were fools. He came to the small door where Aiming and Wei Han left with a gloomy face, took out the laser sword and started cutting. There was no suspense. After 10 seconds, this small door also collapsed, revealing a tunnel leading down. Ming and Wei Han had already run away and didn't know where they had gone. Chase. Xiang Bao stretched his head and looked inside and asked Chang Ning. Chang Ning hesitated for a moment. The two men seemed to be quite familiar with this place. His side was not familiar with the terrain, and his awakening ability was limited. If they set up an ambush below, it would probably cause casualties to his side. Li Ling. A shrill scream came faintly from below. It was really Li Ling. Chang Ning no longer hesitated and nodded to the three people behind him, saying, let's go down. Be careful, don't be careless. He also glared at Yun Kai and Qian, especially you. Yun Kai and Qian stuck out a tongue. I know. Chang Ning stretched his legs and walked in first. As soon as he took a step, he heard a burst of hurried footsteps behind him, and the sound was chaotic, as if many people were rushing here. Chang Ning's heart trembled. Could there be other soldiers in the bunker? Or did the workers in the factory also come to join the battle? He looked back and saw a group of people quickly walked into the small doorway cut out of the gate. They filled half of the room densely, and Chief ZHU of the Yanjing City Research Institute was among them. Mr. Huang, what do you mean? Commander ZHU pointed at the dead soldiers on the ground. Chapter 199. 2 pieces of information. Seeing half of the soldiers suddenly appearing in the room, Xiao Bao's first reaction was to crawl into the hole in front of the small door. Young Qian Qian's first reaction was to take a fighting stance and stare at the crowd in front, to see where to find a breakthrough. Yang Bao's first reaction was to turn around and look at Chang Ning. Chang Ning did not move or attack, but shrugged and said to Chief ZHU, "These people were all killed by the resistance army in your Yanjing City, not us." The resistance army in Yanjing City? Chief ZHU stood among the soldiers and frowned. One is called Aiming, and the other is called Wei Han. Chang Ning reminded. Judging from Chief ZHU's expression, it was obvious that he did not know these two people. The army commander Wang Dahua next to him reminded, they are Jiang Bin's confidants, and are responsible for patrolling the 4 towns of Lang, Crossing, Fang, and Xiang. Chief ZHU suddenly realized, so they are the remnants of Jiang Bin. How did young Master Huang get involved with them? Chang Ning smiled and said, what a coincidence. They came to me and said that they wanted to rebel and overthrow your rule while your institute's large troops are out. Of course I didn't do it, but they brought a piece of news that a master from Yunqing caught a mad ghost and came to the bunker. I happen to have some friendship with my friends in Yunqing, so I thought about coming over to take a look. Hearing the words Yunqing and mad ghost, the expressions of Chief ZHU and Wang Dahua changed, and Chief ZHU looked at the small door behind Chang Ning with a hint of anxiety in his eyes. Chang Ning saw all their macro expressions, but on the surface he remained calm and asked, which friend is coming from Yunqing? I might know him, if you tell me his name. ZHU reluctantly smiled. This, I don't know either. There are many people sent out by the institute, and there are many friends in various cities. I need to ask who it is specifically. After a pause, he said, Mr. Huang, you shot Jiang Bin in Kangling. Does he have anything from Kangling? Have you seen it? Chang Ning was surprised. It turned out that ZHU knew about the bone aircraft and the small box in Kangling. He was so anxious to find Jiang Bin's body. Maybe his real purpose was to find those two things. Chang Ning threw the 2 bone objects to Xiao Bao to carry on his back. After returning to Yanjing City, Xiao Bao put them in the storage box of the armored vehicle. Now the armored vehicle is parked in the woods not far from the entrance of the bunker. If ZHU and his men were not in a hurry to come back, they would probably see the armored vehicle if they passed by the woods and took a closer look. But it seems that Chief ZHU did not find the armored vehicle, at least he did not find the bone aircraft in the armored vehicle. Chang Ning also smiled and imitated Chief ZHU's tone just now. This, I don't know. He attacked me at that time, and I killed him without looking at his body carefully. Looking at Chief ZHU's expression, he obviously did not believe it. After a while, he turned his head and looked at Wang Dahua. Then the two nodded together and took a step back. As they retreated to the back of the soldiers in front raised their guns and pointed at Chang Ning and the other 4. Chang Ning was well prepared. When he was talking to them just now, he had quietly gestured behind his back to let Xiang Bao, Yun Qian Qian and Yang Bao enter the small door behind him. Seeing that the other party suddenly turned his face, he turned around and jumped into the small door. Behind the door is a downward ramp. After walking a few steps in, the firepower of the soldiers in the control center can no longer cover them. After all, bullets can't turn. Chang Ning had just retreated inside when he heard Chief ZHU shouting outside again. Mr. Huang, don't misunderstand. The things in Kangling are very important to our institute. Since Mr. Huang has taken them, please return them to us. The previous cooperation between Yanjing City and Chen will continue to be valid. After a pause, he didn't hear Chang Ning's response and continued. Mr. Huang, Jiang Bin is a traitor to our Yanjing City. The remnants of the traitor should be dealt with by us. As he spoke, he signaled Wang Dahua with his eyes. Wang Dahua didn't dare to move forward. He poked the soldier next to him. The soldier had no choice but to walk to the small door and look inside. Where is the shadow of Chang Ning? The reason why Chang Ning stayed for a while to argue with Chief Zhu was to obtain further information. Now that two important pieces of information are in hand, it is better to slip away as soon as possible and find the whereabouts of Li Ling. Now their awakening abilities are suppressed. If they fight hard, they may not be able to beat the institute with hundreds of fully armed soldiers. He called Xiang Bao, Yang Bao and Yun Qian together, and while carefully exploring downwards, he analyzed the two pieces of information he had just obtained. The first piece of information was that Aiming and Wei Hang were Jiang Bin's confidants and were given the right by Jiang Bin to patrol the 4 towns closest to the south of Yanjing City. Chang Ning felt that this information might not be reliable. It was possible that Aiming and Wei Hang were only Jiang Bin's confidants on the surface, but in fact they had their own plans. Because Aiming had witnessed Chang Ning and Yang Bao parachuting, he could easily associate it with the crashed plane. If he was Jiang Bin's confidant, he would definitely tell Jiang Bin this information. But until Jiang Bin was killed by himself, he seemed to have no idea of the truth of the crash. So the fact that they were Jiang Bin's confidants was probably just a superficial phenomenon. This also indirectly shows that the top management of the institute really knew nothing about Aiming and Wei Hang's so-called resistance army. The second piece of information was that Chief Zhu knew what was under Kangling. Jiang Bin thought that Chief Zhu didn't know, so he secretly commissioned the relic hunter to find Kangling, wanting to monopolize the things in Kangling. But it is obvious that Chief Zhu not only knows what is in Kangling, but also knows the functional value of that thing. In this way, even if his group was not there at the time, Jiang Bin would have killed all the relic hunters brought by Chen and got the bone aircraft and the box, but he would have been killed and taken away by Chief Zhu in the end. This is also good news. Although Jiang Bin is dead, he can start from Chief Zhu to find out the true details of the bone aircraft and the small box. While analyzing the intelligence, he took the lead and walked down the tunnel behind the small door. The slope of this tunnel is greater than that of other tunnels outside. It winds for 400 or 500 meters. It is estimated that it has walked more than 200 meters vertically underground, and the bottom has not been seen yet. There is no light in the tunnel. Chang Ning and the other 4 took out flashlights to illuminate the surroundings, so it didn't feel dim. Strange, did you hear Li Ling's voice just now? Just now, I heard a vague cry of Li Ling at the entrance of the tunnel, but I didn't hear the second cry. After walking so far, Chang Ning felt something was wrong. I heard it. Yun Qian raised her hand to show that Chang Ning was not hallucinating. Chang Ning nodded and continued to walk forward at a slower pace, carefully checking the tunnel floor and walls along the way. Li Ling. At this time, Chang Ning finally heard the second call of Li Ling. The strange thing was that the source of this call was actually above their heads. Chapter 200, Thousand Man Pit. Chang Ning looked up in astonishment. Could it be that he had not seen the fork in the ceiling of the tunnel he had just passed? He recalled that when he and his friends were rushing on the road, they were indeed just staring at the ground and the wall, and seemed to have ignored the top of their heads. Xiang Bao also looked up and said, "Go back and look for it." Chang Ning shook his head. "It's easy to run into the main force of the institute if we go back now." Yun Qian frowned and said, "In such a narrow tunnel, what can they do with so many people? Let's fight." Chang Ning flicked her forehead and said, "Even if the casualties are 10 to 1, if we kill 20 or 30 of them, they still have 100 people, and we have 2 or 3 casualties on our side. How many are left?" Yun Qian touched the place on her head where Chang Ning flicked her head, pouted in dissatisfaction, but there was no way to refute it. Yang Bao looked up at the ceiling, then looked down at the seemingly endless downward tunnel. "What should we do?" Chang Ning lowered his head and thought for a while. In fact, there are 2 possibilities now. The first possibility is that the exit is indeed on the ceiling, and they missed it. But he recalled that, even if they didn't search the ceiling specifically, if there was a hole that people could walk through, they couldn't ignore it, unless the exit was not only on the ceiling, but also very secretive. There is another possibility, that is, there is no exit on the ceiling at all. Although the tunnel is winding downward now, it may change direction and go up after a while. Both possibilities are possible. In the case of pursuers behind, no matter which possibility it is, you can't turn back. But Li Ling's voice did come from above. If it is the first possibility, then continuing to walk down will get farther and farther. So, the best solution now is Chang Ning said to the three friends, "You all step back, at least 10 meters away from me." He asked several people to walk down another 10 meters, and then took out the Skywalker #1 laser sword. This sword is not only a reliable partner in battle, but also very practical in civil engineering. Chang Ning has used it to break many solid doors before. Now, Chang Ning aimed the laser sword at the top of the tunnel. Boom. The laser sword cut a few times, and a large piece of cement fell from the top. Chang Ning stood on the fallen cement pier, and continued to cut upwards. Behind the cement above was the rock of the mountain. He breathed a sigh of relief, fearing that there was soil on top. If it was rock, it would be easier to deal with. Without stopping, he continued to cut. The rocks of the mountain above his head kept falling. Several large rocks, combined with stone chips and debris, soon blocked the tunnel in front of Chang Ning. Now, even if Chief Zhu brought more than 100 soldiers from the research institute over, facing the rock blocking the road, he would not be able to attack Chang Ning and his team. If you want to move the rocks and open the passage in this terrain, you can only cut off the radiation field to restore the soldier's awakening ability. And if you cut off the radiation field and restore the awakening ability, are Chang Ning and his team afraid of the other party? The plan worked. Chang Ning asked the three people to shine the light behind him, and he kept cutting with a laser sword in front. The rocks in the tunnel were getting more and more blocked, and many stones rolled down the slope of the tunnel. It was unknown how deep they could roll. Above Chang Ning, a passage with simple stone steps was gradually cut out by him. Li Ling's voice could penetrate the stone wall, which means the distance is not far. Chang Ning followed the direction of the sound and dug up little by little. After more than 10 minutes, the laser sword was swung again, but it did not cut the stone, but a piece of cement residue fell down. Chang Ning said to the people behind him, "Be careful, the exit may be in front, be prepared for battle." After seeing several people nod, Chang Ning turned back and continued to poke the cement block above his head with the laser sword. Boom. Another piece of cement fell, and another space finally appeared above. Chang Ning waited for a while below, and when he didn't hear any movement above, he climbed up with a flashlight. After coming up, he found that this was not a room or a tunnel, but a very low space, which should be a ventilation channel in the bunker. After looking around and finding no one else, Chang Ning waved to Yun Kai and Qian, Yang Bao, and Xiang Bao to come up. Which way to go? Xiang Bao was so big that he could only squat in this ventilation channel. Chang Ning frowned and looked to the left, then to the right. This section of the channel gradually descended from left to right. Thinking of Li Ling's voice coming from above, Chang Ning decisively pointed to the left. "Let's go over here first." In this passage, only Yun Kai and Qian's body size can walk normally, and everyone else has to bend down, and Xiang Bao even squats to walk forward. Everyone in the group walked very awkwardly, but fortunately, not long after walking out, a partition made of iron bars appeared in the passage. Through the gap in the partition, you can see that there is a room below. Chang Ning asked Xiang Bao to hold the iron bars on the partition, and he used a laser sword to cut the partition around. Xiang Bao gently put the partition aside, stretched his head and looked down. "Go down." Chang Ning nodded. "Everyone keep your voice down. I think we are almost there." After that, he jumped down first and landed gently on the ground below. Xiang Bao and Yun Kai and Qian also jumped down. Yang Bao hesitated for a long time above, and Chang Ning stretched out his arms and encouraged her. "Jump. I'll catch you." She no longer hesitated, closed her eyes and jumped down, and was steadily caught in Chang Ning's arms. After the four of them landed, they all picked up their flashlights and shone them around. This was a large space, about 200 square meters, empty, with only a few pieces of tattered canvas covering a few piles of supplies at the base of the wall. Chang Ning went over to take a look, and there were some steel bars and bricks inside, probably the leftover materials from the construction of this bunker. There were 2 iron doors on the opposite wall, one on the left and one on the right, and no one knew where they led. After the flashlight swept through the room, Chang Ning first came to the iron door on the left. There was a handle on the door, and with a slight turn, the door opened. A foul smell floated out of the door, and Chang Ning felt that he was almost suffocating. He quickly stepped back a few steps and covered his mouth and nose. "Is this their toilet?" Young Kai and Kian started running back, saying as she ran. Chang Ning injured the stench and shone the flashlight inside. Bones and flesh and blood piled up like a mountain. The whole room was full of corpses. Some of the lower ones had completely turned into bones, and those on the upper ones were still covered with flesh and blood. There is an iron door on the ceiling of the room, and it is estimated that the bodies were thrown down from there. At a glance, there are nearly 1,000 bodies. You have to know that before Chang Ning came to Yuncheng, the entire Yuncheng had a population of only more than 2,000 people. These nearly 1,000 bodies, placed in the doomsday wasteland, are definitely a big deal. Looking more carefully, each body has a hole dug out, some in the chest, and some in the top of the head. It seems that these should be awakened people, or crazy ghosts, who were thrown here after their power cores or star cores were taken away. Chang Ning felt nauseous, quickly closed this door, and then walked to the door on the right. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.